After all, he was the one who bragged the most before, but now he could only take a taxi. Mei didn't say anything, but it was obvious that she was looking down on Zhang Duopan. She felt that Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Fan Ganhe, but that he really didn't have any substantial relationship with Xinyan. From the looks of it, he wasn't someone who liked to show off. Otherwise, when Zhang Duopan said he had a car, people would have said it already. But Lin Yi only said he had a car when they got to the parking lot. Although this car was not Bai Weituo's, Bai Weituo was very refreshed, as if he had vented his anger. He said, "Some people think that they are great just because they have a car. Don't they know that cars are very common now?" Get in. Lin Yi opened the driver's door. It was a 3-seater car, but Mei and Xiaoling sat in the last row and it wasn't too crowded. The front passenger seat was left for Xinyan. Xinyan shook her head slightly and got in the car. It seemed that these people had already decided that she and Lin Yi were a couple. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe looked at Lin Yi's car leave the parking lot with dark expressions. At the end of the day, they were the only ones left without a car. When they got to the school gate, Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe stopped a taxi and rushed to the KTV. But when they got there, Mei had already started singing. Coincidentally, the two of them were singing a love song. This song was sung by Su Shirhan and her teacher, so naturally no one would think too much about it. But Mei and Bai Weituo singing together, it was a bit ambiguous. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weituo, who sang well and was in the limelight. He began to ponder. He had already lost a lot of face today. Mei must have lost a lot of her impression. If he wanted to win back this round, he might have to put in more effort. In high school, Zhang Duopan didn't have any competitors. He went to a key high school and the school discipline was very strict. Only students like him who came from a rich family would play dirty tricks. The other students only focused on their studies. But it was different in university. You could have a serious relationship here and the school and teachers wouldn't interfere. If he wanted to beat Bai Weituo, he would have to show some skills. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were sitting together, and this made Fan Ganhe a bit unhappy. He wanted to go over, but Xiaoling was sitting on the other side of Wang Xinyan. He didn't have a chance. "Zhang bro, we need to think of something." Fan Ganhe was a strong student, but his family didn't have much money. He went to Donghai Industry University and he was a special student. Zhang Duopan, on the other hand, was a self-funded student. His family was quite well off and he always treated Fan Ganhe, so Fan Ganhe was willing to call him Zhang bro. Fuck. This guy came out of nowhere. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weituo and said angrily. "It's not just that Bai Weituo, that Lin Yi. He's a fucking pig in sheep's clothing. Why didn't he say he had a car? He made a fool of you, Zhang bro." Fan Ganhe wanted to pursue Wang Xinyan, so naturally he didn't like Lin Yi. "How about this? You go get some beer and we'll use this drinking competition as an excuse to get them drunk. It's best if we can embarrass them and make them look bad." Zhang Duopan said to Fan Ganhe. "Okay." Fan Ganhe agreed immediately. It was common for them to drink in high school, and they would carry boxes of beer when they went to restaurants. It wasn't a problem for them to drink a box of beer. Fan Ganhe left the room and after a while he came back with 5 boxes of beer. The beer in KTV was small, but 5 boxes was a lot. 5 boxes of beer was nothing to Fan Ganhe, who was a strong student. He brought them indirectly, but Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao's faces changed. The beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1885. They could vaguely guess Zhang Duopan's intentions. Sure enough, when Bai Weituo finished his song, Zhang Duopan said, "Brothers, I was late just now. I wanted to treat you, but you've already paid the deposit. I can only buy some beer as an apology. Drinking alcohol isn't too good, right?" Song Xiaodao didn't have any goals here. Wang Xinyan was already taken. Mei had Bai Weituo fighting for her, and Chai Xiaoling and Zhao Xingji were having a heated conversation. Song Xiaodao didn't plan to look for her here, and he didn't have a high tolerance for alcohol anyway. "It's okay. We're both university students. If you don't know how to drink, you can do whatever you want." Zhang Duopan wasn't targeting Song Xiaodao, so it didn't matter if he drank or not. After that, Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weituo provocatively and said, "Brother, after singing, how about moistening your throat? Don't tell me you can't drink it or I'll look down on you." Although Zhang Duopan didn't say it clearly, Bai Weituo understood what he meant. In front of He Meiyue, Bai Weituo was naturally unwilling to show weakness. If he were to admit defeat at this time, wouldn't he lose face? Let's drink. Who's afraid of who? Although Bai Weituo's alcohol tolerance wasn't very good, young men of his age always liked to let their emotions affect their decisions. He clearly knew that the other party was trying to provoke him, but in front of a beautiful woman, he had no choice but to take the bait. Lin Yi, the two of us? Fan Ganhe taunted Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Xinyan were sitting together, and he hadn't been able to get a word in edgewise. Now that there was a chance, he wouldn't let it go. Lin Yi didn't want to participate in this boring game, but seeing Bai Weituo's appearance, he knew that this kid wanted to see who was better. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. Since Bai Weituo called him big brother, how could he ignore him? One-on-one is boring. How about this, me and Bai Weituo will fight 2-on-2. Wasn't it just a drinking competition? Just say it. Lin Yi didn't hold back at all as he exposed their intentions. This made Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe somewhat uncomfortable. Alright, let's compete in drinking. You said it yourself. Zhang Duopan said, coming up with an idea. He Meiyue and the others looked at him with disdain. No one here was an idiot, and he was smart enough to make it sound like Lin Yi was the one who took the beer, but they all knew very well who brought the beer. I told you. Lin Yi nodded. Xinyan frowned. He didn't know why Lin Yi was against Fan Ganhe. He clearly didn't like him, so there was no need for him to get involved. But now he changed his mind. Xinyan's heart tightened and she shook her head. If it's a competition of drinking, then let's make it a bet. Otherwise, what's the point of drinking so much? Fan Ganhe was a drunkard. 1-on-1. He was afraid that Zhang Duopan would not be able to outdrink Bai Weituo, but it was 2 against 2, so they could complement each other. That was why he was so confident. What prize? Bai Weituo asked. The loser will give up on pursuing Meiyue and stay away from her. Zhang Duopan said. If you want to compete in drinking, don't use me as a wager. Who I want to be friends with is not up to you. He Meiyue frowned. She said unhappily. Bai Weituo was secretly grateful. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe dared to do this, so they must have the confidence. He Meiyue was their high school classmate, so naturally she knew how much they could drink. At this moment, He Meiyue's words were obviously for Bai Weituo. How could he not be happy? But Lin Yi felt that it was a pity. Although He Meiyue had good intentions, it was more of a hindrance than a help. Just these two? Looking at the 5 boxes of beer under his feet, Lin Yi curled his lips. If it was white, Lin Yi wouldn't have a problem. He Meiyue's words made Zhang Duopan embarrassed. She was obviously protecting Bai Weituo. Zhang Duopan didn't understand. What was so good about Bai Weituo? Why did He Meiyue protect him? Haha, Meiyue, we are just joking. Isn't it boring? Let's add some atmosphere. Zhang Duopan laughed and said, let's change the prize. The loser will go to the next room, kick the door open and curse your mother. How about it? This was obviously harming someone. If there was someone ruthless in the next room, it wouldn't be too much to be beaten up. Zhang Duopan's proposal made Bai Weituo's face change slightly. You are all drunk and you still want to curse? Zhang Duopan, can't you do something more realistic? He Meiyue was a little unhappy. Everyone comes out to play and we are happy. Aren't you causing trouble by doing this? This wouldn't work and that wouldn't work. Zhang Duopan really couldn't think of a prize to harm Bai Weituo. If He Meiyue retorted, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? With that in mind, he said, how about this, Bai Weituo, what do you guys say? How about this, I suggest that we change the beer to white and then we compete to see who can drink faster. The slower one will have to take off a piece of clothing. Lin Yi wanted to stand up for Bai Weituo, so he just wanted to embarrass the two. Change it to white and see who can drink faster? Zhang Duopan frowned. He didn't know why Lin Yi suddenly suggested this. Lin Yi and Bai Weituo hadn't spoken before, and it was He Meiyue who was protecting them. It was only natural that Zhang Duopan thought that Lin Yi and Bai Weituo were afraid of them. But Lin Yi suddenly changed his attitude and suggested a stronger white, and a competition to see who could drink faster. This was a little strange. Don't dare to compete? Then forget it. We'll do as you said, you lose. Stay away from He Meiyue and Xinyan from now on. Lin Yi said faintly. He Meiyue looked at Lin Yi, a trace of confusion in her eyes. Chapter 1886. Bai Weituo's face changed, but Lin Yi nodded. Sure. Net. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe felt even more reassured after seeing Bai Weituo's face. From what they could see, Lin Yi was just being stubborn. Waiter, get me 2 bottles of Red Star Ergot. Fan Ganha opened the door and called out to the waiter outside. I'm sorry sir, but we don't sell that kind of alcohol here. The waiter said, embarrassed. If you don't sell it, then go buy 2 bottles for me. With that, Fan Ganha took out 300 kwai and handed it to the waiter. Go take the rest as a tip. Sir. The waiter was overjoyed. The Red Star Ergot in the supermarket was only 10 kwai a bottle, and he'd be making 280 kwai this way. The waiter had to pay 50% as a tip, but that was still 140 kwai. It was just an errand, of course, so he was more than happy to do it. Do you want the 56 or 65? The higher the better. Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi provocatively and said faintly, Alright, I'll go right away. The waiter turned and ran off. Fan Ganha had drunk baijiu before and his alcohol tolerance was pretty good. He hadn't had a 65% baijiu before, but 2 bottles of 40% baijiu wasn't a problem at all. He wasn't afraid of Lin Yi at all. As for speed, he didn't believe that Lin Yi would be faster than a sports student. Net. Xinyan, can you do it or not? Look at how confident your guy is, don't lose out. He Meiyue sat down in Lin Yi's seat and whispered to Xinyan, What do you mean my guy? Xinyan blushed. How would I know if he can drink it or not? But he should be fine. As far as Xinyan was concerned, Lin Yi wasn't someone who would do something he wasn't confident in. Bai Weituo doesn't look like he can hold his liquor. You don't know, but that Zhang Duopan isn't that good, but that Fan Ganha is a drunkard. He's an excellent student and he'd go drinking with a bunch of people after training at night. He's already trained to hold his liquor. Meiyue was a little worried. Meiyue, don't tell me you've fallen for Bai Weituo? Wang Xinyan, who had been teased by Meiyue all this time, finally found an opportunity to tease her back. I just feel that his impression is not bad. He's not as exaggerated as Zhang Duopan. Meiyue smiled, but she did not hide her thoughts. Wang Xinyan looked at Meiyue a little surprised. She suddenly realized that they were in university now and it was completely different from high school. Dating was normal now and even the teachers didn't care about it anymore. Who would be secretive about it? On the other hand, because she was engaged, she hadn't adapted to this environment and she seemed to be very shy. That's true. Xinyan nodded. Xinyan, just what are you thinking? Do you like Lin Yi? If you don't, I can introduce him to my friends. Don't waste such a good opportunity, Meiyue said with a smile. Don't. Xinyan said subconsciously but realized that she was being too nosy. She might cause Meiyue to misunderstand. Xinyan wanted to say that Lin Yi already had a girlfriend, but this was Lin Yi's private business. Xinyan didn't want to say too much, so she kept her mouth shut. See, you're still interested in him. Meiyue laughed, thinking that she knew what Xinyan was thinking. At that moment, the KTV waiter came back with 2 bottles of Red Star Ergot. Fan Ganha took it and took out 4 disposable paper cups from the cabinet, 1 for each person, and placed them in front of Lin Yi and the others. How do we drink? Zhang Duopan asked. I'll go first. Lin Yi didn't wait for Bai Weituo to speak. This level of liquor was like drinking water to Lin Yi. Lin Yi said as he took a bottle of Red Star Ergot and poured himself a full cup. I'll accompany you. Your opponent is me. Fan Ganha followed Lin Yi's example and filled his cup. Meiyue, please be the referee. We'll start when you say start. Lin Yi raised his cup with a smile. But let's make this clear first. Don't let too much out of your mouth and don't leave too much at the bottom of the cup or you lose. I don't need you to tell me that. I won't go back on my word. Fan Ganha humphed. Alright, 3, 2, 1. Start. Meiyue saw that Lin Yi was full of confidence and didn't say anything else. How agile was Lin Yi? He was an earth-class master. As soon as Meiyue said the last word, the cup was already in his mouth. He raised his head and poured the liquor into his stomach. Then he put the paper cup on the table. Wow, Bai Weituo, Meiyue and everyone else looked at Lin Yi in shock. Even Zhang Duopan couldn't help but exclaim. Because Lin Yi was drinking too fast, it was as if he was drinking water. This wasn't drinking at all. Although Fan Ganha also drank fast, Lin Yi put down the paper cup only after everyone exclaimed. He thought that he was fast and the exclamations were directed at him. So after he put down the cup he said proudly, How is it? Are you scared? Everyone looked at Fan Ganha strangely. Zhang Duopan blushed. He was annoyed that Fan Ganha was sick. The other person had finished drinking and he still said this? Fan Ganha was waiting for everyone's praise and the sound of Lin Yi's fear. But after waiting for a long time he didn't hear anything. He suddenly recovered from his narcissistic state and looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Did you drink? Are your eyes not good? Lin Yi pointed at the empty cup on the table. Gah. Fan Ganha knew that Lin Yi had finished drinking as well. And it seemed that Lin Yi had finished drinking earlier than him. Thinking about what he said before, he suddenly blushed. But he was thick-skinned. Since you've finished, let's continue. You haven't taken off your clothes yet. Lin Yi shook his head and said, Don't tell me you're drunk after one cup? You even forgot about the prize? Who said so? Fan Ganha took off his coat. In this autumn, people usually wore 2 coats, a coat and a shirt or t-shirt. So it didn't affect anything after taking off one coat. After taking off his clothes, Fan Ganha filled his cup again and took the initiative to raise it. This is white wine. If you finish the first cup quickly, your stomach will be empty. If you drink it quickly, you will feel uncomfortable later. Chapter 1887. Oh, then drink slowly. Lin Yi nodded and said. Ahem. Fan Ganha was a little speechless. Did this guy really not understand, or was he pretending not to understand? I was just covering up and he actually asked me to drink slowly. What's wrong with you? Did you drink too slowly? It's spicy to your throat? Lin Yi asked. Nothing. Fan Ganha was a little speechless. Lin Yi filled the glass. Under Himeyue's command, he poured it again. This time Fan Ganha didn't dare to delay, but he was still a few seconds slower than Lin Yi. This made him very depressed. I'm sorry. I was a little thirsty, so I drank too quickly. You have to take off your clothes again. Lin Yi said. At this time, Bai Weituo and the others looked at Lin Yi with a look of admiration. It can't be. Really? Isn't Lin Yi drinking too much? 2 glasses of white wine went down and nothing happened. Fan Ganha's face was a little red. Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi with some surprise. He really looked down on this guy before. Only now did he know that Lin Yi had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. From the moment Lin Yi took out the car key, Fan Ganha should have thought that this guy had been pretending all along. In fact, Lin Yi really wasn't pretending because the level of his opponents in his eyes had risen. For people like Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha, he really didn't put them in his eyes. In fact, Lin Yi's current opponents were all at the level of an Earth stage master. If this matter didn't involve Bai Weituo in the dormitory, this boy who had been calling him Big Brother, Lin Yi wouldn't be bothered to drink with these 2 people. Brother, you have some skills. I didn't notice it. Fan Ganha's eyes flashed a hint of anger. Before Lin Yi spoke, he took off his shirt and revealed his strong muscles. The 3rd glass, the result was still Lin Yi. Fan Ganha's face was a little ugly. His clothes were dragged down. Only the pants were left. However, if he were to take off his pants in front of so many people, he would lose all his face in the future. This put him in a dilemma. Take off your shoes. They count as clothes. Zhang Duopan was not stupid. He immediately found an escape route for Fan Ganha. Shoes don't count as clothes, right? Bai Weituo had found a chance to humiliate the other party, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. If shoes aren't clothes, then pants shouldn't be either. Since I've already taken off all my clothes, I don't need to take them off anymore. After Zhang Duopan finished speaking, he looked at Bai Weituo with a smug expression. He thought to himself, You little brat, you're still lacking when it comes to scheming against me. I've been called little rascal since I was young, and that's not for nothing. A bottle of ergotu was poured into this disposable paper cup. One bottle only had 3 glasses. Therefore the winner was decided after 3 cups. Fan Ganha was defeated. But to be honest, his alcohol tolerance was not bad. After drinking a bottle of ergotu, his face was a little red, but there was nothing wrong with him. Bai Weituo, it's our turn now. How about it? If you're scared, just admit defeat. Although Lin Yi's ability to drink exceeded Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha's expectations, Bai Weituo obviously couldn't drink. When he said he wanted to drink beer, his expression changed slightly, let alone white wine. Moreover, Zhang Duopan still had an idea in his mind. What are you afraid of? Although I can't drink, I'm doing this for love. I'm going all out today. Bai Weituo shrugged his shoulders and stared at Zhang Duopan like a tiger watching its prey. A sense of pride arose spontaneously. Before this, Lin Yi had already helped him lay the foundation. Even if he lost, it didn't matter. Everyone won one round each and no one could blame the other. This was also the reason why Bai Weituo dared to challenge. However, he was secretly grateful to Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi winning the first round, he wouldn't be so bold. Okay, Ganha, you go and ask the waiter to buy 2 more bottles of white wine. I want the one just now. As Zhang Duopan said this, he gave Fan Ganha a look. These 2 people had been together for many years. Zhang Duopan's look was enough for Fan Ganha to understand. Zhang Duopan's alcohol tolerance wasn't good, but in order to win, he naturally had to do something. Fan Ganha had already embarrassed himself. At this time, he naturally put on his coat again. He walked out of the private room and went to find the waiter to buy wine. However, this time Fan Ganha left for a longer time. In order not to arouse suspicion, Fan Ganha said as soon as he entered the door, "This waiter, I gave him 300 last time. This time I gave him 200 and he wasn't very happy." "Ah, no wonder you were gone for so long. I thought you couldn't find someone to buy wine yourself." Zhang Duopan smiled. These 2 people spoke very naturally and it didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. However, Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganha with a deep meaning. He felt that it was a bit illogical. Fan Ganha must have spent Zhang Duopan's money, but since he was spending Zhang Duopan's money, did he really need to discuss that 100 kuai with the waiter? "You guys enjoy yourself, I'm going to the washroom," Xinyan said as she walked out of the private room. They waited in the private room for a while, but the waiter still hadn't returned with the wine. Fan Ganha said, "I'll go take a look, see what's taking so long." Fan Ganha walked out of the private room and saw the waiter waiting for him. He quickly walked over and asked, "How is it? Is it done?" "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Boss, this bottle of ergota's been opened, and I changed it to mineral water according to your request. This bottle is unopened and it's still white wine," the waiter explained to Fan Ganha. "Not bad, well done." Fan Ganha nodded, satisfied. "It's nothing, the boss gave me such a big tip. If I can't even do something like this, I'd be too embarrassed to take the money," the waiter said. Fan Ganha didn't say anything as he picked up the 2 bottles of ergotu and walked into the private room. Wang Xinyan, who had just returned from the washroom, saw this scene. Xinyan frowned as she walked into the private room. She walked to Lin Yi's side and whispered something into his ear. "Don't worry, I'm fine after drinking this little bit of wine. I can drive." Lin Yi winked at Xinyan with a smile. Xinyan paused. She told Lin Yi about Fan Ganha's tricks and Lin Yi's answer was so strange. But Xinyan was smart. She didn't think that Lin Yi didn't hear what she said, and Lin Yi said that because he didn't want Fan Ganha to suspect him. Thinking about how Lin Yi's answer was a little ambiguous, as if she was concerned about him, Xinyan blushed. Under the dim light of the KTV private room, she looked even more beautiful. Fan Ganha was both happy and angry at the same time. Wang Xinyan was actually concerned about Lin Yi. These 2 didn't look like normal friends no matter how he looked at it. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1888. Wine again. Okay, let's continue. As Lin Yi said this, he pushed the 2 bottles of ergotu on the table over. "Ha, this time Bai Weituo and I will drink." "I say, Bai Weituo, you won't let him drink for you, right?" When Zhang Duopan saw that Lin Yi still wanted to drink for him, his face changed slightly. His alcohol tolerance wasn't as good as Fan Ganha. Even if he drank water, he didn't have the confidence to win. After all, Lin Yi drank alcohol as fast as he drank water. "Brother Lin, let me do it this time," Bai Weituo said. "Ha, alright, then I'll give it to you." Lin Yi pushed the 2 bottles of white wine over. Seeing that Lin Yi gave up, Zhang Duopan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up the ergotu in front of him and opened the bottle cap. He thought this Zhang Duopan is quite amazing. He replaced the inside with water and the bottle cap on the outside is still intact. There's no flaw at all. What a talent. If Lin Yi and Bai Weituo were suspicious, they wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. However, although Zhang Duopan thought so, Fan Ganha's face changed. He clearly remembered that the bottle of ergotu near Zhang Duopan should have been opened. It was impossible to be newly opened. Could it be that there was a problem? In contrast, Bai Weituo was a bit puzzled. Why does my bottle of ergotu seem to be opened and closed again? Could it be that I encountered the legendary mixture of a few bottles of leftover wine? But ergotu is very cheap. It's not worth it, right? As he was wondering in his heart, Bai Weitua suddenly felt his feet being kicked twice. When he turned his head, he saw Lin Yi's comforting smile. Bai Weitua's heart brightened. Could it be that Lin Yi did something? Bai Weitua quickly poured the erguotu in front of him into the disposable paper cup, and he found something unusual. Although this erguotu also had the smell of alcohol, it wasn't strong. It was just a faint smell. Could it be? Bai Weitua was excited. He didn't know how Lin Yi did it. But Lin Yi must have done something to it. Otherwise, how could he have hinted at her? On the other side, Zhang Duopan also poured some wine. But after he did so, he was dumbfounded. What kind of mineral water was this? It was clearly erguotu. The smell of alcohol was strong. Zhang Duopan frowned. Could it be that Fan Ganhe didn't understand what he meant? What the hell was this guy doing? But at this moment, he definitely couldn't open his mouth to ask. If he did, wouldn't everyone know that he wanted to cheat? Therefore he could only bite the bullet and raise his glass. Bai Weitua. Come on. This time Miwa will be the judge again. Although the liquor was not changed to water, Zhang Duopan thought that Bai Weitua was definitely not as good as him. Although this bottle of white wine was a bit too much for him, it was still better than Bai Weitua. Sure. Come on. Bai Weitua, on the other hand, was full of confidence. If he couldn't beat her in drinking water, he might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Fan Ganhe wanted to say something, but he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't say it because he didn't know what to say. He looked at Bai Weitua's excited look and guessed that his erguotu with mineral water was probably in Bai Weitua's hands. However, Fan Ganhe was very puzzled. He clearly put the bottle of mineral water in front of Fan Ganhe, but how did it run to Bai Weitua? He didn't understand. The bottle was pushed by Lin Yi at that time, but Lin Yi shouldn't know the hidden story behind it. Moreover, when Lin Yi pushed the bottle, he was also watching closely. How could Lin Yi have the chance to switch? 3, 2, 1. Start. He Meiwei had already shouted the slogan. Bai Weitua and Zhang Duopan raised their wine glasses at the same time. Compared to Bai Weitua, who drank the wine in one gulp, Zhang Duopan was in much more pain. He drank the wine several times, but he finally drank it. After drinking it, he looked at the empty wine glass in front of Bai Weitua in shock. You've finished drinking? Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua's calm face and hesitated. Yeah, I finished drinking. Bai Weitua smiled, but he was a little guilty. I don't want the other party to find out that I drank mineral water. This is strange. Zhang Duopan thought. Is this Bai Weitua also pretending to be weak? Why does it look like he didn't drink after drinking? However, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only say, okay, then let's continue. He filled the glass again. There was no doubt that Bai Weitua won. This made Zhang Duopan's face a little bad. He was also bare-chested, but his figure wasn't as good as Fan Ganhe's. His bulging belly was exposed. The third glass was naturally Bai Weitua's victory. This time Zhang Duopan was completely desperate. Why did my strength become my weakness when it came to the other party? Before Fan Ganhe lost, he could understand. After all, this method of competition was proposed by Lin Yi. Without confidence, Lin Yi wouldn't have proposed this method of competition. However, Bai Weitua's worried expression was seen by Zhang Duopan. Could it be? Zhang Duopan picked up Bai Weitua's wine bottle. Although the remaining wine wasn't enough to fill a glass, there was still enough left. Zhang Duopan directly poured it into his own glass. He picked it up and smelled it. Suddenly, he revealed a look of realization. Bai Weitua was shocked. He cheated and Zhang Duopan caught him in the act. Wouldn't he Meiwei look down on him? If he lost, it was because he wasn't strong enough. But cheating was another matter. Just as Bai Weitua was very nervous, afraid that Zhang Duopan would reveal the truth, Zhang Duopan put the wine bottle on the table with a gloomy face. He said indifferently, "Brother Bai is really courageous. I admire you. I concede defeat." Bai Weitua looked at Zhang Duopan in confusion. What's wrong with this guy? Why didn't he expose me? He didn't see it? In fact, it wasn't that Zhang Duopan didn't want to expose him, but he couldn't. This wine was Fan Ganhe's doing. Even if he exposed it, it would mean that Bai Weitua cheated. He would be the one who wanted to cheat first. At that time, Meiwei would look down on him even more. So no matter what, Zhang Duopan could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. Xinyan covered her mouth with a smile. Lin Yi didn't disappoint her. She knew from the train that Lin Yi was very skillful, or the scammer's money wouldn't have ended up in Lin Yi's pocket. This time, Lin Yi must have used the same trick, swapping the bottle of erguotu in front of Bai Weitua without anyone noticing. Bai Weitua didn't think that he'd win just like that. Yes, it really was a mystery. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1889. Bai Weitua thought that if he had known this, he would have made the bet with Zhang Duopan. Whoever lost had to stay away from He Meiyue. Okay, let's continue. The competition is over. Zhang Duopan, do you understand now? There's always someone stronger than you and there's always someone stronger than you. He Meiyue looked at Zhang Duopan's defeated look and shook her head helplessly. She hated Zhang Duopan's arrogant attitude the most. She felt good that he was defeated. Zhang Duopan's face darkened. He was unconvinced. Is he lost unjustly? He could have won, but Fan Ganhe ruined it. He didn't know that it was Lin Yi's trick. If he knew, he wouldn't be so angry. But now he thought that he accidentally messed it up, so he was very depressed. When he heard He Meiyue say this, he felt that he couldn't lose face in front of Bai Weitua, so he straightened his neck and said, "Let's do it this way. Drinking is just a small thing. It's not a serious competition. If you want to compete, let's have a big competition." How? Bai Weitua won the drinking competition, so he was full of confidence. At this time he naturally wouldn't be weak. How about this, during the freshman party, we'll each put up a performance. Whoever's performance gets the highest ranking wins, and the loser will voluntarily give up on Meiyue. What do you think? Zhang Duopan risked being scolded by He Meiyue and used her as a wager again. Of course he had a reason for doing this. Bai Weitua had just won and now his ego was inflated. If he made such a request again, Bai Weitua might be hot-headed and agree. At that time, even if He Meiyue said something, it would be useless. A man should not go back on his words. Zhang Duopan had more reason to push him. Although Bai Weitua drank water. In order to make it more realistic, Fan Ganhe asked the waiter to leave some wine in the bottle. This was nothing to Zhang Duopan. But Bai Weitua was a little drunk. Hearing Zhang Duopan's words, he immediately said boldly, "Okay, let's compete." Who's afraid of who? Bai Weitua had some confidence in his singing. Otherwise he wouldn't be singing duets with He Meiyue as soon as he arrived, because this was his strength. He always went on stage during the school's art festival. He had won first place in the solo competition before, so he wasn't afraid of Zhang Duopan at all. Good, a gentleman's word. Zhang Duopan was overjoyed and quickly said, "I won't take back my words." Bai Weitua said, "That's a good idea. I'm talking about each of us coming up with a program. I'm not talking about going on stage personally. In other words, as long as I'm the one who planned and participated in this program, it's fine." Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua proudly. Wasn't this guy full of confidence? He didn't mind giving him a blow to lower his morale. So what? Bai Weitua also knew that Zhang Duopan was playing a word game. One person coming up with a show and one person performing a show were two different things. Coming up with a show could be a show that everyone completed together. As long as he participated, it would be fine. But one person performing, it would be one person. However, Bai Weitua couldn't take back his words, so he could only bite the bullet and say it. "Okay, Meiyue, this time he volunteered and it's not like I'm hurting him. Brother Bai's voice is not bad. Maybe he can really get a good result." Zhang Duopan said with a smile. He Meiyue shook her head. She wanted to say something, but it was indeed too late. At this time the two people were already facing each other. If He Meiyue said anything, it would be a bit unreasonable. One was an old classmate and the other was a new classmate with a good impression. If He Meiyue hated the two to the extreme, she would definitely stop them. However, the key problem was that He Meiyue didn't hate them, so she let them do whatever they wanted. "Don't look at me. I'm not interested in gambling with you." Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganhe and said faintly, "I'm drinking with you because of Bai Weitua." Fan Ganhe was annoyed. This Lin Yi didn't put him in his eyes. He was completely ignoring him. Fan Ganhe was thinking about whether or not he should find a chance to mess with Lin Yi and show him how strong he was. All right. Let's sing." He Meiyue didn't want to waste any more time. She still had things to do tomorrow and the military training was starting the day after. There was some unpleasantness between them, but He Meiyue's voice was really good. Bai Weitua and Zhang Duopan were in unison, praising He Meiyue. At night, Lin Yi drove his roommates and Xinyan back to school. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe, on the other hand, had to take a taxi back. Boss, how did you do it? You replaced that erguotu with plain water? Bai Weituo said excitedly, but then remembered that He Meiyue was still sitting in the back. He felt a little embarrassed. Meiyue. You drank water? He Meiyue was a little surprised. I didn't switch the water, Fan Ganhe did, Lin Yi said. Xinyan overheard the conversation between Fan Ganhe and the waiter when she went to the washroom, so I switched it for you secretly. That water was meant for Zhang Duopan. No wonder. He Meiyue realized. Lin Yi had been sitting in the room the whole time, and no matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could have switched the liquor in the erguotu with water in front of everyone. But it was possible that he'd secretly switched the two bottles. I was wondering, so it was their own doing. No wonder Zhang Duopan didn't say anything when he sniffed the liquor in my glass, and then didn't say anything. He just looked like he was eating shit. He was the one who got the short end of the stick. Bai Weituo laughed heartily. You're amazing, big bro Lin. You did it without anyone noticing. It's just a small trick, Lin Yi said faintly. Xinyan, on the other hand, smiled faintly. She'd known all along that Lin Yi was capable of this. Didn't he steal all the money from those scammers on the train? When they arrived at school, Lin Yi and the others sent Xinyan, He Meiyue, and Chai Shaoling back to their dorms before heading back to the boys' dorm. However, they bumped into the Miss and Shu in front of the girls' dorm. Lin Yi was walking shoulder to shoulder with Xinyan when he saw Meng Yao. He froze. Xinyan was a little startled. She didn't know what these two pretty girls were up to, but she could tell that they were looking at her with hostility. Xinyan didn't know what she'd done to offend them, or were they here for Lin Yi? The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1890. Meng Yao and Yushu naturally had an impression of Xinyan. It was the first time they went shopping with Lin Yi, and Lin Yi stood up for this pretty girl. That pissed off both Meng Yao and Yushu. Xinyan might not have anything to do with Lin Yi, but they didn't have a good impression of this girl. But other than Lin Yi, Bai Weituo, Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao were all wide-eyed. Where did these two school beauties come from? And why did it seem like they had some sort of grudge against Lin Yi and Xinyan? Lin Yi, Meng Yao said faintly as she looked at Xinyan. I'm done here, let's go home. Xinyan looked at Meng Yao a little surprised. Wasn't Lin Yi's girlfriend Xiao Xiao? Why did Meng Yao sound like she was living with Lin Yi? Could it be that Lin Yi changed girlfriends? No wonder Meng Yao's eyes were so unfriendly. So it was because he was with Lin Yi? I'll be on my way. Xinyan smiled faintly as she nodded to Lin Yi and left. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that the miss would say something so flirtatious in front of everyone. Back in high school, the miss didn't want people to know that he was living with her, but now that they were in university, she was telling everyone about it. Let's go. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. Bai Weituo and the others were dumbfounded. So this was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Then Xinyan. He Meiyue frowned as she looked at Lin Yi and then at Xinyan, who was walking away. She couldn't see anything wrong. Wang Xinyan was still as calm as ever, as if what was happening in front of her had nothing to do with her. This confused He Meiyue. Was there really nothing going on between Wang Xinyan and Lin Yi? Lin Yi and Bai Weituo waved their hands and walked towards the parking lot with Miss and Shu. No way. We've all misunderstood? Bai Weituo's eyes widened in disbelief. Living together? No wonder boss didn't come back last night. Song Xiaodao enviously said. Xinyan. Is there really nothing going on between you and Lin Yi? He Meiyue pulled on Xinyan's arm. Really? Xinyan shrugged, a bitter smile on her face. We're just friends. Okay, I believe you this time. He Meiyue finally nodded. But I always feel that the two of you are a little ambiguous. It's really pure. Xinyan joked. Lin Yi, Meng Yao and Yushu came to the parking lot together. Surprisingly, the miss didn't mention Xinyan anymore. Instead, she talked about something else. Military training the day after tomorrow. Bring me and Shu some first aid medicine. The kind that heals external injuries and detoxifies. Meng Yao said. There will be field training and I'm worried that something might happen without you around. Okay, but call me if there's any trouble. Lin Yi nodded. Every faculty has a different time, so we probably won't run into each other. Meng Yao said. Plus, Shu and I want to train ourselves. We can't rely on you for everything. You'll leave us sooner or later. Yeah, Shield Bro flirts with girls all the time. He doesn't talk to us anymore. Yushu nodded, feeling wronged. So you two are still unhappy about Wang Xinyan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There's nothing going on between me and her. Didn't I tell you guys? I took the same train with her when I first came to Songshan. She's kind, so we got to know each other. I know, I didn't say anything, Mengyao said faintly. But you're doing this to Xiao Xiao. We don't think it's a good idea. Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi frowned at the mention of Xiao Xiao. This wasn't the first time he had this weird feeling. Thinking about Xiao Xiao made Lin Yi feel like he had a girlfriend. Right, Xiao Xiao? He's my second wife. Am I right? Mengyao and Yushu looked at each other. They didn't know how to answer, but Yushu nodded. Yeah, why? Then here's the problem: if she's the second wife, then who's the main wife? Lin Yi asked. As expected, here's the problem. The miss frowned. She knew that this wouldn't be solved so easily. There were still some flaws in this medicine. If it was Tang Yun who stayed in Snowy Valley and focused on training, there wouldn't be so many problems. But the problem was that Lin Yi had gone back to his old life. There were some things in his life that reminded him of his memories. It wasn't as simple as just forgetting about Tang Yun. Lin Yi might not be able to remember what he couldn't see, but what about what he could see? Mengyao and Yushu looked at each other bitterly, not knowing how to explain. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't forget that Xiao Xiao was his second wife. Actually, Yao Yao is your main wife, Yushu said seriously. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't believe Shu. Don't listen to Shu's nonsense. I'm hungry, let's go. Mengyao interrupted, changing the topic for now. When they got home, Grandma Sun was busy preparing dinner. Mengyao, on the other hand, pulled Shu upstairs. Lin Yi didn't ask much. The two were always like this at home. Lin Yi used this time to go out and buy medicine. There were injury medicines, but there weren't that many antidotes. Lin Yi had some with him, and after giving it to Mengyao and the others, Lin Yi didn't have any left. Naturally, he had to make some more. Mengyao and Yushu went upstairs. The Miss face was very serious. Shu, Lin Yi seems to have remembered something. What do we do? Yeah, I think so too. Shield Bro seems to have remembered something, but he doesn't remember anything related to Yun Yun sis. He remembers everything else very clearly. I can't even lie to him that you're the main wife, because he remembers that you're not? Yushu said bitterly. That's right. Can see it too. It doesn't matter if it's you, me, or anyone else, as long as you're with Tang Yun, it's all gone. But the side effects are very obvious as well. It'll cause memory gaps. Mengyao frowned. What should we do? If we tell the truth, then we'll waste Yun Yun's efforts. But if we don't, Lin Yi will only get more and more suspicious. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1891. It'd be great if we could get in touch with Xiao Xiao. We'll be able to think of something if we're together, Yushu said. Yeah, you two have the most ideas. Mengyao nodded. Speak of the devil and he'll appear. Sometimes reality was just that coincidental. Snowy Valley. Tang Yun's parents had been here for a while. Tang Juqing didn't have much of a problem. The ice palace was beautiful and he could live like a hermit with his wife and daughter. He didn't have to work hard and he didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Everything was taken care of by the Snowy Valley. It was just that he wasn't used to having food and clothes at his fingertips. Xiao Ming was also a quiet person. Every day, other than cultivating the mental cultivation technique of the Snow Valley with Mother Tang, she lived a quiet life. She was already used to being neglected in the Tang family. Compared to here, where she could walk around freely and see her sister, brother-in-law and daughter, this was like heaven. But Madame Tang's arrival had brought disaster upon the Snowy Valley. The venerable elder had always thought that she was a snobbish person after practicing heartless tactics. But after meeting Mrs. Tang, she finally understood what snobbery and greed were. Compared to her, Mrs. Tang paled in comparison. Reporting to Elder Zhang on duty, the disciples of the Snowy Valley found a 1,000-year snow lotus. A disciple cupped his fist. Ah, a 1,000-year snow lotus. Union, isn't that precious? Let's leave it for Lin Yi. Lin Yi is a practitioner too, but he doesn't have that many treasures. We should leave all the good stuff for him. Mrs. Tang was even better than the pig. Whenever the Snowy Valley found something good, she would always bring Tang Yun to the scene. A few black lines appeared on the Grand Elder's forehead. It had only been a few days and Mrs. Tang had taken over half of the good stuff they found. How were they supposed to live in the future? They weren't familiar with the snowy valley now. By the time they got to know each other better, wouldn't Mother Tang have already ransacked the entire Snow Valley's treasury? Mom, you've already saved a lot of good stuff for Lin Yi, Tang Yun said helplessly. I'm not afraid of having too many good stuff. I want the snow lotus, Mrs. Tang said to Elder Zhang arrogantly. Mrs. Tang. Elder Zhang's forehead was covered in cold sweat, however, even the Grand Elder couldn't do anything about it. How could Elder Zhang stop Mrs. Tang? Mrs. Tang's pet phrase was, if you don't want to give it to me, fine, I'll take my daughter and leave. Go back to find Lin Yi, get married and have children. Inheritance my ass. If you have the ability, why don't you kill us? Therefore the Great Elder did not do anything to her at all. The Great Elder had never seen such a snobbish and shameless person in his life. This was simply turning hostile. If things did not go his way, he would threaten to leave, and the Grand Elder could only let him do as he pleased. Shuaigu didn't have anything to threaten Tang Yun with now, and Lin Yi's qi deviation had been cured. If Tang Yun insisted on leaving, Shuaigu couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't easy to find an inheritor. They couldn't really kill her, could they? And Mrs. Tang was Tang Yun's mother and they couldn't defend her. If they offended her, Tang Yun wouldn't cultivate properly, and the one who would suffer in the end would be Shuaigu. Moreover, Mrs. Tang wasn't Tang Yun's biological mother, but an adoptive mother, and Mrs. Tang's real daughter was Bing Tang. If they really killed her, wouldn't that girl Bing Tang explode in anger and turn Shuaigu upside down? One had to know that Bing Tang wasn't weaker than the Great Elder, and Bing Tang's cultivation method was obviously better than the Great Elder's. Even the Great Elder didn't have the confidence to win against her. The Grand Elder was filled with hatred. Before Mrs. Tang came, he was the one who threatened Tang Yun. In order to cure Lin Yi, Tang Yun had no choice but to compromise. But when Mrs. Tang came, the situation was completely reversed. Mrs. Tang had become the Grand Elder who threatened everyone. Fortunately, Shuaigu was a big family and didn't lack these things. Mrs. Tang wasn't a greedy person and she would at least leave half of it for Shuaigu. This made the Great Elder feel better. However, as greedy as Mrs. Tang was, she treated her own people well, especially Lin Yi. Once she decided on him as her son-in-law, even if Tang Yun's status was high now, she didn't have the slightest intention of letting Tang Yun climb up the ladder. In comparison, it was better than the Great Elder's heartless snobbishness. Mom, that's enough. Tang Yun felt helpless towards her mother. The two mothers' personalities were completely different. What do you mean that's enough? I'll go to the Ice Palace tomorrow and ask Bing Tang for more stuff. Doesn't she want to be Lin Yi's little wife? If she doesn't show some sincerity, I won't be on her side, Mrs. Tang said. Cough cough. The Great Elder almost choked to death at Mrs. Tang's words. It wasn't just their family that was going to suffer, but the Ice Palace was going to suffer as well. But this made the Great Elder very happy, thinking about how Bing Tang was going to suffer as well. She felt that it was nothing for Shuaigu to suffer a bit. Huh. Tang Yun sighed to herself. She didn't tell her mother about Lin Yi's situation, so she didn't know that Lin Yi had already forgotten about her. Tang Yun didn't want her mother to worry, so she kept it a secret. But hearing that her mother was going to the Ice Palace made her feel uneasy. Xiao Xiao probably didn't know about Lin Yi's situation yet, and if her mother really went to the Ice Palace and Xiao Xiao contacted Lin Yi, wouldn't her efforts be wasted? Tang Yun knew that her mother was probably just saying it casually and the chances of her going to the Ice Palace was close to zero, but she didn't want to take the risk. As she practiced heartless arts, the coldness around Tang Yun became thicker and thicker, and she had a cold and emotionless aura around her, making people feel like they couldn't get close to her. Only people who practiced the same element would be less affected, and Lin Yi practiced an extreme yang element, so there was no chance of him being with her. Tang Yun finally understood why heartless arts was called heartless arts. Only a person who was disheartened and wanted to forget his feelings would create such a mental cultivation method and mnemonic chant. Tang Yun didn't feel anything wrong at first, but as her strength increased, every time she thought of Lin Yi, the sweetness of the past, she'd feel as if her heart was being cut by an ice knife. It was like blood was dripping and the pain was unbearable. Tang Yun knew that this might be the result of not taking the senseless grass's medicinal liquid. The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1892. Right now she was only at the peak of the early phase of golden class, and it was already so unbearable. The path ahead would only be more painful. Plus, this was a situation where Tang Yun had accepted the inheritance before training. If she wasn't an inheritor, it would be even more painful to break through the barrier during training. It was practically a torture for a person. But even without the barrier, it was still very painful for Tang Yun to train. However, she didn't tell anyone about her pain, not even her mother or the Grand Elder. Because she knew that this was her own choice and it was the choice she had made. Every time she finished her training she would think about how she would become a master, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Lin Yi. She would feel happiness from the bottom of her heart. I can be as strong as you, I can be your helper. Although it's impossible in reality, but in my dreams I will fight alongside you. I won't be your burden anymore, I'll be your pride. When the ancient sects communicated with each other, they still maintained the ancient tradition of writing letters. But when it came to important matters, they had the newest high-tech communication method, satellite phones. There was no cell signal in the inner sect of the Snowy Valley, and there were no landlines either. But satellite phones were unimpeded. Of course, only when an elder or a sect leader had something important to discuss would they use the satellite phone. Sister Shui, can I use the satellite phone in the valley? Tang Yun found Sydney wanting to borrow the phone to call Xiao Xiao. She was afraid that her mother would mess things up first. Satellite phone? You want to call? Shueli looked at Tang Yun strangely. Tang Yun's parents were already here. Who was Tang Yun calling? I want to call Xiao Xiao, Tang Yun said. Xiao Xiao? You mean the Ice Palace? Sydney's expression tensed up. The Snowy Valley hadn't told the Ice Palace about finding an inheritor yet. They wanted to show off after Tang Yun became a sky class. That would be shocking. After all, Tang Yun trained after receiving the inheritance. Compared to Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance, it was much faster because Tang Yun didn't have the barrier of a practitioner's level. It wasn't that her path of cultivation would be smooth sailing, but Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance was much faster. But at least it was rain or shine. So when the Snow Valley suddenly took out an inheritor with the strength of a peak late-stage heaven stage, it would naturally be more shocking than now. He didn't think that Tang Yun would call him right now. But Sydney thought about it carefully. With the relationship between Tang Yun, Xiao Xiao and Bingtang, this matter couldn't be hidden for long. After all, Bingtang's birth mother lived in the Snow Valley. It was possible to hide it for a while, but it would be difficult to hide it for a long time. Plus, Mrs. Tang had said that she went to the Ice Palace today and took all the treasures for Lin Yi. How could she not talk about Tang Yun's situation? Compared to that, he might as well go and shock the little girl Bingtang, and let her know that the Snow Valley also had an inheritor. Yes, Suri's concubine. Tang Yun smiled. Sydney frowned. She didn't know how good Lin Yi was. Why did so many people like him? But this was other people's business and Sydney couldn't say much. She just said, okay Tang Yun's sister, I will discuss it with the Grand Elder, but it should be fine. Yes, thank you. Tang Yun nodded. No need to thank me. You are the future Grand Elder. In the Snow Valley your position is not lower than mine. You are welcome. Sydney shook her head. At first she treated Tang Yun well because Tang Yun brought benefits to the Snow Valley. But as they got to know each other, Sydney found that Tang Yun was a person who was easy to get along with. At least she didn't have any arrogance because she was an inheritor. In fact, with Tang Yun's status in the Snow Valley, even if her words did not carry enormous weight, she could at least override Shueli's authority. However, Tang Yun did not do so. She was still polite to Shueli without a trace of arrogance. Why don't we go together? Tang Yun was a little impatient. She was afraid that her mother would call Bingtang first, and Xiao Xiao would contact Lin Yi. That would be a big deal. One had to know that Mrs. Tang wouldn't listen to others. If she wanted to make a call, even the Grand Elder couldn't stop her. Although everyone knew that she was just saying that she would take Tang Yun away, no one dared to provoke her. Okay, Sydney said, then let's go together. When they arrived at the Great Elder's room, Shueli briefly explained Tang Yun's idea to the Great Elder. The Great Elder nodded without hesitation and said, all right Shueli, give Bingtang a call first and show the power of our Snow Valley. Then let Yun talk to Xiao Xiao. Okay. Sydney was also angry. Last time she was rejected by Bingtang. This time she wanted to show Bingtang that the Snow Valley could find an inheritor even without the help of the Ice Palace. The satellite phone of the ancient sex wouldn't be used easily. Once it was used, it would be a big deal. The phone was brought to Bingtang and Qing said, "Palace Master, there's a satellite phone." Bingtang nodded and picked up the phone. "Hello, I'm Bingtang." The people who could use this phone were the heads or elders of the ancient houses and sections. So when Bingtang picked up the phone, she didn't show any disrespect or arrogance. After all, the people on the other side were on the same level as her. "Sect leader, I am Xueli," Xueli said straightforwardly. "So it's the Snow Valley Master. What do you want?" Bingtang was curious. She had just rejected Sydney not long ago. Why was she calling again? Hee, it's nothing. I just wanted to tell you that the Snow Valley has an inheritor, and she has already comprehended the power of the Snow Valley's inheritance. Xueli's tone was calm, but everyone could hear the pride in her voice. What? There's an inheritor? And he learned the inheritance? Bingtang's eyes widened in shock. The Snow Valley finding an inheritor was already a great thing, but to learn the inheritor, that was a very difficult thing to do. Even Xiao Xiao and Bingtang couldn't guarantee that they'd be able to accept the inheritor after all. The inheritance was about understanding the power of the heavens and earth. It depended on luck and coincidence, it wasn't guaranteed to succeed. "Yes, sorry, but our Snow Valley was a step ahead of you." Sydney smiled. "Palace Master Bing, thank you for rejecting me last time. Otherwise, we might have wasted a talent." The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1893. Sydney was speaking the truth. If Bingtang had agreed to Sydney's suggestion, then Sydney and the Grand Elder would have been so happy that they would have given the fruit to Tang Yun and let them leave. There wouldn't be any inheritance then. But these words sounded like sarcasm to Bingtang. Bingtang humphed. "Then I'll have to congratulate you. Congratulations to your Snowy Valley, you'll be the guest of honor there, going to Heaven Class Island together. Haha, but we really have to thank you for this. In the future, our Snowy Valley and Ice Palace will be even closer." Sydney said. "What do you mean?" Bingtang frowned, not understanding what Sydney meant. Snowy Valley and Ice Palace used to be one family thousands of years ago. They both originated from that place, but the two sects fought and supported each other. To say that they were closer was a bit strange. "Our Shuegu's future Supreme Elder will be your younger sister, cousin and cousin. That's almost the same as your biological sister. Don't you think it's closer than ever?" Xueli said proudly. Shuegu finally had a chance to vent his anger. Naturally, Xueli would not let it go. "Tang Yun." Bingtang paused and immediately thought of Tang Yun. But she was a bit doubtful. How did Tang Yun become the inheritor? Her body. That's right. We have to thank your Ice Palace for leaving such a talent to our Snowy Valley. Sydney smiled. "As far as I know, her body isn't anything special." Bingtang paused as she thought of something. Could it be the legendary hidden ice heart jade bone body? That's right. Sydney said, "It is the rare hidden ice heart jade bone body. It's the same as our Grand Elder." She directly opened the inheritance in the Snowy Valley. Why did she go to the Snowy Valley? Bingtang was curious. Although the Ice Palace had their own information channels, they didn't find out that Tang Yun stayed in the Snowy Valley. Of course, this was a secret. After Linny came back, no one mentioned Tang Yun again. The Ice Palace naturally wouldn't know the real reason. "I'll let little sister Tang tell you the details." Sydney let out a sigh of relief. Naturally, she didn't want to explain the reason. It was better for Tang Yun to explain. With that, Sydney handed the phone to Tang Yun. "Bingtang sis." Tang Yun took the phone. Yun, it's really you." Rock Candy took a deep breath in disbelief. But the truth was right in front of her eyes. She had no choice but to believe it. Tang Yun actually had the hidden heart of ice and jade bones. It was even stronger than his fake ice heart jade bone physique. However, it could only be discovered in a place like the Snow Valley. In the Ice Palace, it would probably never be discovered. Not to mention accepting the inheritance. Yes. "Bingtang sis, I stayed in the Snow Valley." Tang Yun told Bingtang everything that happened during this period of time. "So that's how it is. No wonder you could accept the inheritance under such circumstances." Rock Candy said, "But Linny." Never mind, you talk to Xiao Xiao. Rock Candy didn't want to say anything about Lin Yi and Tang Yun. She didn't expect that Tang Yun would make such a sacrifice, giving the forgetfulness herb to Lin Yi and letting her face the pain of yearning alone. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Xiao Xiao heard that it was a call from Tang Yun and ran over, taking the phone from Tang Tang's hands excitedly. Tang Yun, sis. Xiao Xiao. Hearing this familiar voice, Tang Yun's heart warmed. Tang Yun's heart warmed. It feels so good to be able to hear your voice again. Yes, Tang Yun, sis, I'm good now. When I become a sky class, we'll go back and play 3P with Lin Yi, honey. Xiao Xiao said excitedly. Rock Candy, on the other hand, was speechless. Qing smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Yun, on the other hand, couldn't help but cry after hearing this. If it were before, she would be really shy when she heard Xiao Xiao say this, but now? Xiao Xiao's suggestion was a distant dream. Even if Tang Yun wanted to and agreed to it, it was impossible. Xiao Xiao, listen to me. I might not be able to be with you guys anymore. Tang Yun said sadly. But, Tang Yun, sis, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao paused and asked. Tang Yun smiled bitterly and told Xiao Xiao what she said to Rock Candy. Xiao Xiao cried out in shock. You're saying that you gave Lin Yi's husband the forgetfulness herb? Doesn't that mean he won't remember you anymore? How are we going to do 3P then? You go play with Yao Yao and Shu. I'm afraid that when my heartless arts reaches its peak, you guys won't like me anymore. Tang Yun said helplessly and sadly. Who would like someone with a cold aura around them, someone who made people want to stay away from them? Tang Yun, sis, is there really no other way? Xiao Xiao started to feel sad as well. Plus, my heart doesn't change and Lin Yi doesn't hate me, or maybe he's not afraid of this cold aura that makes people want to stay away from me. Then maybe there's a chance. Tang Yun was just saying it casually because she knew that the possibility was too small. Then, doesn't that mean that I can't do it? I'm training in the ice element too. Xiao Xiao said, shocked. We're different, the merciless arts. It can make people emotionless, not just Lin Yi. Maybe it's the same for me. Tang Yun smiled bitterly. I heard that you can't have love in the later stages of the merciless arts. Otherwise it'll be useless. I see. Xiao Xiao was very sad and sympathetic. Then, what should I do now? Xiao Xiao, what you need to do now is to work with me and make Lin Yi forget me. That's the biggest help and comfort for me. Tang Yun said, if I make Lin Yi remember me, I really don't know if he'll come to Snowy Valley again and forcefully take me away. That won't do either of us any good, and he won't be able to fight against the ancient sects, and I don't want to go back on my words. This is something I promised Snowy Valley of my own accord. The Grand Elder and Sydney relaxed after hearing Tang Yun's words. They'd been scared to death by Mrs. Tang these days, afraid that she'd take Tang Yun away in a fit of anger, and that'd be a huge loss for Snowy Valley. But now that they knew Tang Yun's feelings, they were relieved. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1894. Resolutely give Upus for Mrs. Tang. She could take whatever she wanted. Snowy Valley had a strong foundation and she wasn't an outsider anymore. As long as Tang Yun really became the Grand Elder of Snowy Valley, then Tang Yun would have a part of everything. Oh, I see. Xiao Xiao didn't really want to, but she knew that if she told Lin Yi the truth, she'd be harming Lin Yi and Tang Yun. With Lin Yi's personality, he might really do something out of line. Thinking back to when Lin Yi brought her to the Ice Palace, he wouldn't budge an inch in front of Bing Tang, even bringing up the 2-year agreement. How could Lin Yi just let Tang Yun go like that? Yeah, I've talked to Yao Yao and Shu already. Hey guys, help me take care of him. Perhaps one day we'll meet again, but at that time, I'll be watching you guys from the back, wishing you all the best. Tang Yun said. Man. Xiao Xiao shook her head helplessly and didn't say anything else. It was hard for her, but this was Tang Yun's decision. She knew that this might be the best solution for Lin Yi and Tang Yun. Don't worry. I'll get in touch with Yao Yao and Shu and help you hide it. Okay, thank you, Xiao Xiao. Tang Yun said sincerely. What are you thanking me for? I should be thanking you. If it weren't for your tolerance, I wouldn't be the Xiao Xiao I am now, Xiao Xiao said emotionally. If I wasn't Lin Yi's husband's mistress, I wouldn't be in the Ice Palace. We're family, so let's not talk like that. I can't contact Lin Yi anymore, but I can still contact you. If there's any news about Lin Yi, remember to tell me, Tang Yun said. Xiao Xiao nodded quickly. I'll call Tang Yun sis first. Eh. That's all for now, we'll keep in touch. Tang Yun said. After hanging up, Tang Yun silently returned the satellite phone to the Grand Elder. This is your decision, I can't stop you. But Tang Yun, tell me, are you really ready? The Grand Elder took over the phone and asked with a serious expression. Yes, I'm ready. Tang Yun nodded heavily. Even if the path of cultivation is full of obstacles and thorns, I will face it calmly. Because he is in my heart. As long as I think of him, I will have the courage to face all difficulties. Since you have chosen to walk down this path, then persevere. The Great Elder nodded. This is just the beginning, the future will be even more difficult, but I believe that you will walk down this path because you are the second person who has a hidden heart of ice and jade bones since the founding of the Snow Valley. Perhaps, with your body type, you do not need the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass because you are right, the founder did not consume the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass. Thank you, Grand Elder. Tang Yun was pleasantly surprised when she heard the Grand Elder say that she didn't need to let go of her feelings anymore. No need to thank me, you chose your own path. The Grand Elder shook his head. But there is something I have to remind you in advance. Please speak, Grand Elder. Tang Yun said. Although the Heartless spell was created by the founder of the sect, she did not cultivate it to the 10th level. She was stuck at the peak of the 9th level for her entire life. The Great Elder said, perhaps, this is also the reason why she did not take the senseless herb's medicinal liquid. Tang Yun paused. This Heartless Arts was created by the founder, but she did not reach the 10th level? Tang Yun just couldn't believe it. A person created an incantation, but she didn't practice it to perfection. How did she create it? The founder was a person with great wisdom and power. You can't use common sense to judge her, the Grand Elder said. The Grand Elder said, actually, it's the same logic as alchemists. Some people are very familiar with medicinal properties and can change the pill formula at will. But if you really ask him to refine the pill, he can't refine it. Could it be that the Grand Elder is talking about armchair strategists? Tang Yun asked, stunned. You could say that, but the founder wasn't an armchair strategist. If this Heartless Arts was trained to the 10th level, it would be a heaven-defying skill. The Grand Elder said seriously. Turning water into ice, turning ice into mist, all it takes is a thought. You can use the power of heaven and earth as you wish. If you train it to perfection, one water inheritor is enough. You don't even need 3. Plus, you'll be more confident when you do that thing. Sky Class Island? Tang Yun's face changed. She knew from Lin Yi what Xiao Xiao had to do as an inheritor, but she didn't know the details, only the general idea. That's right, it's Sky Class Island, the Grand Elder said. If you train to the 10th level, you'll have more confidence in opening Sky Class Island, at least with the water element. Sky Class Island? What is it? How do I open it? Tang Yun asked. That? I don't know. The Grand Elder shook her head. That's news from that place. They didn't say the specifics and I only have a general idea. Maybe you'll know when you become a Sky Class late phase peak. That place. Tang Yun paused. She didn't know what the Grand Elder was talking about. You'll get your answer in the Sky Class meeting, the Grand Elder said. If you haven't broken through by the 9th level peak, then you can consider whether or not you want to use the Forgetful Grass. So you're saying that even if I don't use the Forgetful Grass, it won't affect me much? Tang Yun asked. That's right. There's Xiao Xiao from the Ice Palace in that place. I heard that they've already prepared a water element inheritor. We have water, mist, and ice elements, and the 9th level peak is enough. The Grand Elder said regretfully. But the power of the 10th level is something you can't imagine. If you really make it to the 10th level, even if you don't surpass Sky Class, you'll at least become the number 1 in Sky Class, the number 1 in the world. The power of Heartless Arts shocked Tang Yun. If she really made it to the 10th level, then she'd become Lin Yi's biggest helper. Didn't that mean? No, if she used the Heartless Grass, how would she remember Lin Yi? With that thought, Tang Yun gave up on that idea. Target equals undefined. Chapter 1895. Chapter 1907. Xiao Xiao's solution being the strongest in the world evidently didn't appeal to her. In her heart, she only wanted to remember that little bit of happiness that belonged only to her. That sunny day under the tree, Lin Yi personally put the engagement ring on her. He didn't remember it anymore, but it was enough that she remembered it. Seeing the gentleness and happiness in Tang Yun's eyes, the Grand Elder and Sydney shook their heads at the same time. It seemed that this huge attraction wasn't as important as a memory. Alright, I won't say anymore. Li, tell Elder Zhang to give Tang Yun a satellite phone so that she can contact the Ice Palace at any time. Since the Grand Elder approved of Tang Yun's choice, he didn't restrict her from contacting the outside world. Of course, this phone could only reach the Ice Palace. Xiao Xiao called Meng Yao immediately after the call with Tang Yun. She couldn't wait to find someone to share her depressed feelings with. Yushu paused as she looked at the weird number on her phone. Hello. It's Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao said. Oh, Xiao Xiao? Yushu cried out. Yao Yao, it's Xiao Xiao calling. Xiao Xiao. Meng Yao was surprised as well. I just mentioned Xiao Xiao and she's calling? Yeah. Yushu nodded. Xiao Xiao, did you miss us? Of course, we're a prankster duo, Xiao Xiao said. And Yao Yao and Linny honey too. Ah, right, do you know about Tang Yun sis? Yushu hadn't even been happy for 2 minutes when she remembered Tang Yun's situation. Her heart sank and her excitement waned. I know. Xiao Xiao was silent as well. Tang Yun sis just called me. Ah, she contacted you? Yushu blinked. Why didn't she contact me? We ancient sects have our own ways of contacting each other, but her situation is a bit stricter than mine. I can call whenever I want, but she can't, Xiao Xiao said. She called me this time to talk about Lin Yi's husband. Yeah, Yao Yao and I wanted to talk to you about Shield Bro as well. Yushu said. Oh, you're looking for me too? Xiao Xiao blinked. What about Lin Yi? What happened to him? Are you in trouble? Trouble. I did, but it's over now. Yushu shook her head. So you did run into some trouble. Thank goodness you're fine. Xiao Xiao relaxed. So you're looking for me? It's like this. Although Shield Bro used the forgetfulness herb and forgot about Tang Yun sis, there seems to be a gap in his memory. Yushu said. Fault? Vacancy? What do you mean? Xiao Xiao didn't quite understand what Yushu meant. Yushu sighed and didn't know how to describe it more accurately. It's like this, to be more specific, all of Shield Bro's memories of Tang Yun sis are gone, which means that no matter if it's you, me, Yao Yao sis, or anyone else related to Tang Yun sis, Shield Bro doesn't remember anything, but he remembers you, me, Yao Yao sis, and everyone else, but he doesn't remember Tang Yun sis. Is there a problem with that? Xiao Xiao didn't think there was anything wrong with what Yushu said. Naturally, there's a problem, Yushu said. Yushu said, Shield Bro, he knows you're his small wife, so he's thinking who's his big wife. But he doesn't remember, so he asked Yao Yao and I. Luckily, we interrupted him, or else he'd ask again and we wouldn't know how to explain. It's fine once, but if it happens too many times it'll be a problem. I see. Isn't that easy? Yao Yao sis always wants to be the big wife, right? Then just tell Lin Yi honey that Yao Yao sis is the big wife, Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation, but Xiao Xiao didn't have any thoughts of going against them right now. In order to not waste Tang Yun's efforts, Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation. It was a happy ending. No way. Yushu shook her head. I wanted to do that before, but Shield Bro doesn't remember Tang Yun, but he remembers our relationship. He almost thought I was sick last time. That's true. Xiao Xiao frowned. This was a problem. If there was a small wife, then there had to be a big wife. So who was the big wife? So, Yao Yao and I were thinking about discussing it with you, Yushu said helplessly. Let me think. Xiao Xiao thought about it carefully. After a while she asked, you're saying that Lin Yi honey doesn't remember what happened between me and Tang Yun sis, right? Yes, he doesn't remember anything like that at all. Yushu nodded. Then he probably doesn't remember what we talked about Tang Yun sis, right? Xiao Xiao continued. That should be it. He doesn't remember anything related to Tang Yun sis, Yushu said. That's good, I've got an idea, Xiao Xiao said suddenly. What idea? Yushu asked quickly. Let's say that I'm the one who pestered Lin Yi honey to chase after him, Xiao Xiao said. Isn't that how it is? Yushu was confused. It's not the same, listen to me, Xiao Xiao said. Then you tell Lin Yi honey that he doesn't like me, so I asked to be the small wife, allowing him to find the big wife he likes and have a threesome with him. Will that work? Yushu hesitated. Lin Yi wasn't an idiot, couldn't he see the problem? Of course. When Lin Yi honey took me in, it was because of Tang Yun sis's help. He doesn't remember anything about Tang Yunsis now, so he'll only remember that I chased him. As for how he agreed to it, he definitely doesn't remember, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. Xiao Xiao said. Doesn't that just benefit Lin Yi? Yushu put Meng Yao's ear on the phone as well after getting the call. Meng Yao heard Xiao Xiao say that she wanted Lin Yi to find a big wife. Didn't that mean that Lin Yi had another woman? And so, Meng Yao gasped subconsciously. Chapter 1896. Overjoyed, but after saying that, Meng Yao felt like she was being too nosy. Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao didn't have any objections, why would she care? I don't have a choice, this is the only way I can think of, otherwise I really don't know how to deal with him. Xiao Xiao didn't really care about Lin Yi having a big wife, she was a small wife, and she had already accepted the fact that Meng Yao and Yushu would become Lin Yi's women in the future, so she came up with this idea. Meng Yao was silent. Indeed, only Xiao Xiao's method could explain why Lin Yi didn't have a main wife and had a main wife. Lin Yi remembered how Xiao Xiao had chased him, and if she'd just randomly come up with an excuse saying that she was a second wife, he probably wouldn't have believed her. He remembered that Xiao Xiao was a second wife and it wasn't a joke. That was why he'd asked so seriously. It seems like this is the only way, we really can't think of anything else. Meng Yao helplessly accepted the reality. But Yao Yao, you can try a little harder, okay? We told him to find a big wife, but he doesn't have one yet, right? If you become his big wife, wouldn't that be fine? Xiao Xiao could tell that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood. I don't think I can. Let him find someone else. Meng Yao said subconsciously but regretted it immediately after. Why couldn't she become Lin Yi's big wife? But she'd already said it and she couldn't go back on her words. You guys take care of it. Xiao Xiao didn't mind. Alright, let's talk later, I need to go train. Time's up. Aren't you going to talk to Lin Yi? Meng Yao asked. I won't. Xiao Xiao hesitated before shaking her head. I promised Rock Candy that I wouldn't contact Lin Yi until he successfully makes the Ice Heart Jade Bone pill. I can't go back on my words. Alright, let's keep in touch then, Meng Yao said. Can I call this number? No, this number is encrypted. You can't call in. Xiao Xiao shook her head. There's no cell signal in the Ice Palace, but only ancient sects have satellite phone numbers. The reason I'm calling you guys is because of Bing Tang Sis and Aunt Qing's trust in me, but I can't tell you this number. Yeah, it's fine. We don't really have anything to do. Meng Yao stopped asking after hearing the reason. I will contact you regularly. By the way, you said you encountered some trouble just now? What's going on? Xiao Xiao remembered what Shu said about the trouble. It's actually like this. Meng Yao simply explained the trouble they'd run into, and it wasn't as scary as Yushu's. Meng Yao's words sounded a little flat, but even so Xiao Xiao could hear the danger in it. That's scary. If Lin Yi honey didn't explode, wouldn't he be in danger? Xiao Xiao said. Yeah, but there was nothing we could do. I wanted to contact you back then, but I didn't have a way to contact you. Meng Yao said helplessly, but at least we're out of danger now. I wish I could help you guys so much, but my strength is still too low. Xiao Xiao was a weird person, but she sighed because of her strength. Bing Tang Sis, maybe she'd help if I begged her, but she'd look down on Lin Yi and break that 2-year promise. Meng Yao and Yushu were silent. They didn't know if the inheritor was in danger, but Tang Yun was already the inheritor and Lin Yi had forgotten about her. But if Xiao Xiao were to become the inheritor, then Lin Yi wouldn't just let it go like that. If he sacrificed Xiao Xiao to save Lin Yi, then Lin Yi wouldn't be happy either. It was a bit of a headache. Luckily they didn't contact Xiao Xiao, and luckily Lin Yi was out of danger by himself. But if I'd known, I'd still ask her to help. Worst case scenario, I'd just become the inheritor. If Tang Yunsis can do it, so can I, Xiao Xiao smiled. Alright, it's all over now. Let's not talk about these depressing things. Meng Yao shook her head. Xiao Xiao, go do your thing. I'll discuss with Shu how to explain this to Lin Yi the next time he brings it up. Hanging up, Meng Yao sighed softly. He had to find a big wife for Lin Yi just like that? She really didn't want to, but she had no choice. Xiao Xiao's suggestion was the only solution. Lin Yi had entered the Jade Space long ago and started practicing the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. This feeling of accumulating made Lin Yi feel like he was back in the mountains when he was practicing the first stage of the art of dragon mastery. It was the same feeling he had back then, feeling the chi flow in his body getting faster and faster under the activation of the arts. But the amount of chi he was absorbing wasn't much. More accurately speaking, Lin Yi didn't have that crazy absorption feeling he got from the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery, and so his leveling speed was slowing down. But Lin Yi also noticed the positive. While the absorption speed was slower, the energy converted by the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery was purer. In other words, the amount of energy Lin Yi absorbed was less, but the converted energy was more refined. This made Lin Yi's Earth Class early phase start to loosen up a little, and he was getting closer to Earth Class early phase peak. When Lin Yi noticed this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. If it weren't for this, Lin Yi would have switched back to the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery because the first stage absorbed a lot of chi. But now it seemed like it was pointless. The energy consumption was a little too high and the efficiency was too low. But while he was happy, he was also depressed. The happy part was that Lin Yi's strength had increased, but the depressed part was that the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery seemed to be stuck at the early stage. When Lin Yi used it, he wasn't very familiar with it and it didn't feel as smooth as the first stage. Of course, he'd only been training for a couple of days and he knew that it wasn't wise to bite off more than he could chew. His strength had to be increased bit by bit, not all at once. Elder Jiao had already told him to take it easy and steady, so there was no point in thinking about that unrealistic speed. Chapter 1897. Chapter 1909. News of Pangolin. The next morning, Lin Yi drove Meng Yao and Yushu to school. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have much to do. Medicine majors didn't have to participate in the student council election, and the class president of the major had to be a member of the school's student council. As for the faculty's student council, he could get a position there anyways, so he didn't have to worry about the election at all. That was the benefit of being a minor. The other majors, on the other hand, had to participate in the election if they wanted to enter the student council or faculty's student council. After all, there was a limit to the number of people in each major. Meng Yao and Yushu went to participate in the election, and Lin Yi went back to the dorm with nothing to do. He knew that the three perverts would ask him some questions, but Lin Yi didn't think that he'd be surrounded the moment he entered the room. "I say, Lin Yi boss, that's not very nice of you. Was that your girlfriend looking for you yesterday? You're living with her? And you lied to us that you're staying with your relative?" Song Xiaodao started yelling when he saw Lin Yi enter the room. "Big bro Lin, you're amazing. I always thought that Wang Xinyan was your girlfriend, but now it seems that your girlfriend isn't worse than Wang Xinyan at all." Bai Weituo said, "I think that this year's school beauty ranking is also on it." "School beauty list? What's that?" Lin Yi asked. "Oh, it's just some students who have nothing better to do at school. And the department's QQ group have selected the freshman campus bell list. There is information and a brief introduction for us boys to refer to." Bai Weituo said, "There's one every year. It's become a habit of our school. Right, don't change the subject. Which one of them is your girlfriend?" "Neither." Lin Yi shook his head. "Neither?" Bai Weituo paused, and Song Xiaodao and Zhao Xingji looked at him in disbelief. "How is that possible?" I'm not lying. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "A relative of mine asked me to take care of them. We're from the same city, so we're quite familiar with each other. I'm basically their follower." Lin Yi added inwardly she was his follower. "Blackie? No way." Bai Weituo's eyes widened. "Big brother Lin, you're not lying? Why would I lie to you? Yes means yes, no means no. Do you think I'd go to Wang Xinyan's place instead of hanging out with her if she really was my girlfriend?" Lin Yi shrugged with a bitter smile. "That's true. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't do that." Bai Weituo nodded. Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao believed what Lin Yi was saying, but they were still a little suspicious of Lin Yi's relationship with either Meng Yao, Yushu, or Xinyan. "What's the plan for today?" Lin Yi interrupted everyone's guesses and asked. "Today our department has nothing to do. Xiaodao and Xingji said that they want to go shopping. They are all foreigners and have never been here before. I was just about to bring them around. Brother Lin, are you going too?" Bai Weituo asked. "Sure, let's go together then," Lin Yi said. But Huaijuan's call came just as Lin Yi finished his sentence. "Jun bro," Lin Yi picked up. "Why are you still calling me brother? Lingshan, Yutian and the others are calling you boss already. I'll go back to calling you boss." You're our captain in the first place, our boss. Huijun said. Up to you. What's up? Lin Yi knew that as his strength increased, the people around him would return to their original state. Where are you? I have something to discuss with you. It's about House Yu and the drug gang. Huijun said. Before House Yu fell, it was a bit troublesome to investigate, but it's much easier now. We got some information. Alright, where are you? I'll come find you immediately. Armadillo's smiling face appeared in Lin Yi's mind, and then it turned into Ziyu. Lin Yi clenched his fist as he asked faintly. No matter who it was, if they touched someone close to Lin Yi wouldn't let them go unscathed. This was Lin Yi's personality. I'm in Donghai. Right, I didn't tell you yet, I got a promotion. I solved a big case a while back, so I got transferred to Donghai. I'm now the vice director here. My position hasn't changed, but this is the provincial capital, so I'm half a rank higher. Huijun said. You're still in Songshan? I'll drive back to find you? You're in Donghai? Lin Yi's expression was a bit weird, but he smiled. I'm in Donghai right now, Donghai Industry University. I just came here to report. Huh? No way, you're in Donghai too? That's great. I was a bit depressed about not being able to see you often, but now it's great. Huijun said. Yeah, you're at the police station? I don't know the way. Lin Yi was new to Donghai and he was completely clueless. Wait for me at the school gate, I'll pick you up in 15 minutes. Huijun said. Right, see you later. Lin Yi agreed before turning to Bai Weituo and the others apologetically. I'm sorry, an old friend came looking for me. I'm afraid I can't go shopping with you guys. No way, Lin bro, you have so many things to do here in Donghai. Bai Weituo was a bit disappointed. Is it a guy or a girl? A guy, it's a guy this time. Lin Yi sweated. Let's go together if you don't believe me. Perfect, let's go together. But Lin bro, we're not spying on you. Bai Weituo said quickly. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. Of course we're not spying on him, weren't you guys just curious? But the three didn't see anyone special at the school gate and there weren't any beauties either. They lost interest and went to a nearby bus stop after saying goodbye to Lin Yi. Lin Yi stood in front of the school gate and an Audi stopped in front of Lin Yi. Huijun got out of the car and waved at Lin Yi. Boss. Jun. Junzi. Lin Yi wanted to call him Jun bro, but remembered that Lin Yi called him boss, so he decided to call him Huijun's nickname instead. It's still as sweet as ever. People would think I don't know the rules if they heard you call me Jun bro. Huijun said with a sigh of relief. Let's not talk about that. Any news on Armadillo? Lin Yi opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. Not bad, Audi A6, but a little old. Chapter 1898. You know I don't care about that. Huijun shook his head. I don't have any news about Armadillo, I'm talking about the drug trafficking. Oh? What is it? Lin Yi was a little disappointed. But it wasn't bad to have news about the drug trafficking. Lin Yi wouldn't mind uprooting them if he had the chance. We found a contact list when we were dealing with House Yu's illegal dealings, but we discovered something shocking. Huijun said solemnly. What is it? Lin Yi asked. Red Conches, the person in charge of the drug trafficking, Enjenda. Huijun said. Enjenda? Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. Enjenda from Housen? Jiangwen's brother? That's right, it's Enjenda. Huijun nodded. From this contact list, we can see that the people in charge of Red Conches are more or less connected to the Firewolves. There's no direct evidence that the Firewolves and Red Conches are the same organization, but at the very least they're working together. Enjenda? Lin Yi frowned. I shouldn't have killed him. You've killed Enjenda? Huijun paused. He'd come to Lin Yi this time to see if Lin Yi could get some evidence from Enjenda. It wasn't realistic to use a contact list against Housen or the Firewolves. Huijun couldn't use normal methods to investigate Enjenda and Housen, so he could only place his hopes on Lin Yi. He didn't think that Enjenda was already dead. Book Ocean Pavilion Net. Lin Yi paused. He knew that the news about Housen hadn't spread, probably because they were trying to keep a low profile. He told Huijun about how Housen plotted against Pingzhan and caused the car accident. Dead? Forget it then. Huijun sighed. I thought I could get some clues from him. Does the rest of the In family know about this? Lin Yi asked. I'm not sure about that, but I'm afraid they wouldn't know the details even if they knew. I'm just trying it out. After all, the Red Conches and the Firewolves are part of the investigation department. Huijun said. Knowing this is enough. With this direction of investigation, I can also pay attention to it at all times. Linny said, but the Firewolf gang has many experts. Their position seems to be higher than the hidden aristocratic families. So powerful? Huijun cried out involuntarily. He hadn't had much contact with the Firewolves, and this was a very mysterious gang. Their business and activities weren't as grand as the regular gangs. Huijun didn't have much contact with them, and he didn't know the power behind them. They really are powerful. I wasn't sure before, but it seems like they're powerful enough to send out an Earth-class late-phase peak just like that. Linny shook his head and sighed. Faubert had said that the Firewolves were powerful, but Linny was still shocked when he saw their strength. If that's the case, then I don't recommend you to take the risk right now. After all, the enemy is too strong. Huijun paused. Boss, I know you're strong taking out 3 Earth-class with one move. But if the Firewolves are as strong as you say, then they might have a Sky-class. Yeah, that's also why I didn't do anything to Jiang Wen. Linny nodded. He was protective and tyrannical, but he wasn't an idiot who'd risk his life for no reason. He'd only risk his life when he had no other choice, and he'd let them go if it wasn't necessary. It wouldn't be too late to deal with them later. Right, I've already made a report suggesting Lingshan to be transferred over. She'll also be the captain of the criminal investigation team, but she'll get a promotion as well. After all, she solved many big cases in Songshan, and the previous captain of the criminal investigation team in Donghai was also transferred to another city because of the case I was involved in. Now that position is empty, and as the vice director of the criminal investigation team, I have a lot of say in the selection, Huijun said. Lingshan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that Song Lingshan would follow him right after he left. This is probably her own idea, right? I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from you, but girls chasing guys isn't that rare nowadays. If you think she's good, boss, you might as well give her a chance. Huijun suggested. I don't think so. She's asking me to help her solve cases all the time. If we really have some sort of relationship, wouldn't I be her assistant all the time? Lin Yi shook his head. Then let's leave it to fate. Huijun didn't say much. If that's the case, I'll be going first. Call me if you need anything. We'll have a good gathering after I'm done with this. Wait, since you're here, let's get down to business first. I told you last time that I could help you get to Mystic early phase, but your meridians had just recovered, and I was worried that your meridians wouldn't be able to handle it. But now it's fine. I can directly get you to Mystic late phase peak. Lin Yi was an Earth class now, and naturally he could increase Huijun's strength directly. He didn't need to compress his chi to help him get from Golden late phase peak to Mystic early phase. Compared to Lingshan and Qintian, Huijun had one less pain to deal with. No. Huijun took a deep breath. To be honest, he was quite envious of Lingshan, Yutian and Qintian making a scene in the Noble House meeting as Mystic late phase peak. They were already Mystic late phase peak. This was a height that many practitioners couldn't reach in their entire lifetimes, and yet they were able to reach it so easily. Huijun wouldn't believe it if they said that they trained themselves. Thinking back to how fast Lin Yi helped him heal his meridians and level up last time, he knew that it was all thanks to Lin Yi. But Lin Yi didn't bring it up on his own, and Huijun couldn't just ask for it. What if Lin Yi needed some time to rest after leveling up these people? Wouldn't it be awkward if he was rejected? But since Lin Yi brought it up, there was no reason for Huijun not to say no. If you don't have anything else, let's do it now. Lin Yi nodded. Chapter 1899. Okay, I haven't bought a house here yet, I've been staying at the hotel. Let's go back to the hotel together. Huijun said excitedly. See me, Huijun was staying at the police station's guest house. He had a suite here, and before he bought a house he was staying here. The people in the guest house evidently knew Huijun, and they weren't surprised that he'd brought someone back. They thought that he was meeting with a witness or an informant, and naturally no one bothered him. Let's start now, we've learned from last time. Lin Yi smiled. Okay. Huijun nodded heavily and sat in front of Lin Yi, extending his hands and letting Lin Yi lock his meridians. He then started channeling his practitioner's arts. Leveling up was a walk in the park for Huaijuan as well. He started channeling the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, converting all the energy in his body into the pure energy Huaijuan needed, flowing into his meridians without end. Huaijuan's strength also broke through from golden late phase peak to mystic, rising all the way to mystic early phase peak, mystic mid phase, mystic late phase peak. Perhaps because of Lin Yi's increase in strength, Huaijuan didn't need to compress his qi when he broke through from golden late phase peak to mystic early phase. There was still a barrier, but Lin Yi helped him break through easily. In other words, Huaijuan felt the pain of breaking through a bottleneck, but it wasn't as intense as Yutian and Ling Shan's. Mystic late phase peak, Huaijuan had already reached it, but Lin Yi didn't stop. He suddenly had an idea. Would it work if he used the second stage of the art of dragon mastery to compress his qi to help Huaijuan break through? One had to know that the purity of the qi produced by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery wasn't something the first stage could compare to. The difference was so huge that even Lin Yi was shocked. If he used the second stage to compress his qi, perhaps he really might be able to break through. Thinking of this, Lin Yi asked in a deep voice, "Junzi, I'm going to help you break through from the mystic rank to the earth rank. Are you okay with that? It might be very painful and you might even fail at the last step, causing your meridians to be crippled. However, I can still repair them. Since it can be repaired, then what were they waiting for? Come on, boss, there's no way we can increase our strength without taking some risks." Huaijuan said calmly after hearing Lin Yi's words. Huaijuan might have hesitated if his meridians were completely destroyed, but Lin Yi could repair them even if they were destroyed. The worst-case scenario was that he'd just have to suffer a bit of pain and it'd be a waste of time. If he succeeded, he would become even more powerful. Was there even a need to choose? He believed that all cultivators would choose the latter. Alright then, bear with it. With that, Lin Yi switched from the first stage of the art of dragon mastery to the second stage. Although he wasn't familiar with the second stage yet, switching between the two stages was still a piece of cake for Lin Yi. Lin Yi started trying to compress his qi with the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. But to his surprise, he realized that it was extremely difficult to compress his qi. Compared to the first stage, the difference was like heaven and earth. The qi formed by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery seemed to be very pure, and it didn't allow Lin Yi to compress it any further. Soon, a layer of sweat formed on Lin Yi's forehead, and there was no progress in compressing his qi. Huaijuan was very puzzled. Lin Yi's qi suddenly stopped, but Lin Yi looked like he was working hard on something. Huaijuan didn't feel anything at all, and so he didn't dare ask anything even though he was puzzled. He could only cooperate silently. Lin Yi was panicking. He could use the qi in the second stage when he was searching for the practitioner's arts, but it was a little uncontrollable when it came to compressing it. It was as if he couldn't control it at all. The qi was gathered by Lin Yi, and when he tried to compress it, it either slipped away or dissipated on its own. How strange. Lin Yi didn't believe that he couldn't control the qi in his body. What was the point of practicing the art of dragon mastery then? Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi gave up on compressing a large amount of qi from before, choosing to compress a smaller area instead. This time it had some effect. The qi was still uncontrollable, but under Lin Yi's forceful compression, it slowly shrunk to a certain size. Lin Yi was overjoyed and didn't dare stay any longer. He immediately sent the compressed qi into Huaijuan's meridians. Huaijuan felt Lin Yi's qi pouring into his body once more. He'd been prepared for it, but the sudden release and expansion of the qi still made him feel like his meridians were about to explode. Huaijuan's roar had turned all of his clothes to ash, but the pure energy ripple that had been generated in that instant was enough to destroy everything around him. A trace of joy flashed across Lin Yi's eyes when he broke through to Earth class. He was in the same situation as Huaijuan. But soon the joy in Lin Yi's eyes turned into disappointment. Huaijuan didn't break through to Earth class, and the qi wave on his body had stopped. Lin Yi could tell with one look that his strength was still at mystic late phase peak. Huaijuan had broken through to Earth class with his help, but he didn't succeed. This kind of situation often happened when other practitioners tried to break through on their own. It wasn't that easy to break through a barrier, especially a barrier like this. It was extremely difficult for a practitioner to break through a barrier, especially a barrier like this. Most of them had to try multiple times before they broke through, and people like Lin Yi who broke through on the first try were rare except for the inheritors. Of course, breaking through with Lin Yi's help was a different story. Fu. Huaijuan let out a long breath, a trace of disappointment in his eyes. He knew his own situation very well. He'd failed at the last moment. He was about to break through to Earth class, but he didn't have enough qi to continue the breakthrough. Huaijuan had experienced situations like this before in his training, so he wasn't too surprised. Huaijuan smiled at the depressed look on Lin Yi's face. Captain Eagle, don't tell me this little setback's enough to make you depressed? It's normal for practitioners to fail to break through. Chapter 1900. Just a little bit more and I might have succeeded. Lin Yi smiled bitterly, but the amount of qi he'd compressed was the limit of what Lin Yi could handle. Any more and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to control it. Yeah, that means there's hope. If it doesn't work this time, we'll try again in the future. I'm just a lab rat anyways, and I'll be staying in Donghai from now on. It'll be convenient for us to see each other. Huaijuan smiled. Ah, you're right. Lin Yi nodded, feeling a little better. Huaijuan was right, he might not be able to do it this time, but there would be chances in the future. Lin Yi had thought it through as well. The second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery wasn't as smooth as the first stage, probably because he'd just started practicing it. The incantations for each stage weren't as detailed as the divisions of strength, but if you were to divide each stage into 10 stages, Lin Yi was only at the second stage of the second stage. He'd just reached the second stage and could barely use the incantations for the second stage. He was a far cry from being familiar with it. Previously, when he used the first level of the mental cultivation method to compress his true qi, he had already broken through to the first level of perfection. Naturally, he could control the true qi in his body freely, and he could even use his true qi to transmit his voice. However, if he wanted to use the second level of the mental cultivation method to do this, it would be quite impossible. Lin Yi was like a beginner when it came to the second stage. He hadn't even grasped the basics yet, so there was no way he could do anything with it. Lin Yi calmed down at the thought, remembering Jiao Lao's words. More haste, less speed. Indeed, the situation this time had proven that he only needed to be more familiar with the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery. It should be possible to raise Huaijuan to the Earth class. Things that couldn't be done on the first stage were a lot easier on the second. Of course, Lin Yi wasn't too surprised. Lin Yi would have just stayed at the first stage until he was old if he couldn't make any progress with each stage. Why would he bother with the second stage if he was already familiar with it? I'll go back and consolidate my strength and I'll try to break through on my own once I'm done. The next time I break through by myself. With your help we might be able to break through in one go. Huaijuan said. I'm afraid it's impossible to try it myself. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There is actually a drawback to helping you increase your strength. I didn't notice it before. But now I've discovered that you can no longer cultivate on your own. Ah. Huaijuan paused. Lin Yi's words struck a chord with him. Huaijuan had tried to break through to the peak late phase of the golden class on his own after he got back, but nothing happened after a couple of attempts. He thought that he was busy with work. He couldn't calm his heart down, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. Ling Shan and the others already know about it. I only found out about it later. I'm really sorry. Lin Yi explained as he looked at the stunned Huaijuan. Eagle, what are you talking about? My strength is all thanks to you. Not only that, you're the one who saved my life. Let's not talk about when we were on missions. How many times has our team been saved because of you? Even the last few times you've done me a favor that can't be measured with words. Huaijuan said. Mystic late phase peak, that's the dream of so many practitioners. Huaijuan wasn't praising, he was just stating the truth. Even a noble house would have a hard time producing a mystic late phase peak practitioner, let alone a regular practitioner. Of course, they wouldn't be able to compete with the hidden houses or the ancient sections. Huaijuan was from a noble house, so his vision was limited to the common world. But as long as you don't have any psychological burden. Lin Yi nodded and looked at the sky outside. It's getting late, I'm going back. The two girls at home are going to check on me. Haha. Let's go, I'll send you. Huaijuan laughed, but realized that he wasn't wearing anything when he stood up. He felt a little awkward. Wait for me, I'm going to change right away. Huaijuan sent Lin Yi to the villa in the Shuashang district. and found out where Lin Yi's house was. What surprised Lin Yi was that his Cherokee had been driven back, and was parked in the parking lot in the villa's yard. It seemed like the miss must have come back in a fit of anger because she couldn't find him. She had a key to the car as well. Lin Yi quickly took out his phone and turned it on. Lin Yi was worried that he'd be disturbed when he helped Huijun level up, so he turned his phone off. The miss must have called him a couple of times. Is sis-in-law angry? Huijun blinked as he looked at Lin Yi, who was smiling bitterly. What sis-in-law? It's not like you don't know my relationship with them. Lin Yi shrugged. Tang. Huijun was just about to say that Tang Yin wasn't here, but a voice interrupted him before he could finish his sentence. Young bro, so you're the one who kidnapped Shield bro. Yushu came running out of the yard before Huijun could finish. Mengyao and Yushu had just come back as well. Mengyao had been calling Lin Yi, but Lin Yi's phone was turned off. She'd waited for more than an hour at school and his phone was still turned off. Mengyao was both angry and worried, so she drove back first. Mengyao wasn't worried that something had happened to Lin Yi. What could possibly happen to him at school? Mengyao thought that Lin Yi might have gone out with Wang Xinyan, since they'd been together for the past couple of days. The thought of Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan together made Mengyao's heart feel like it was being squeezed by something. She was just about to call Lin Yi again when she heard the sound of a car parked outside the villa. The two turned around out of curiosity, only to see Lin Yi and Huijun getting out of the car, and Huijun making fun of her and Shu. Mengyao didn't know why, but her face only reddened. She wasn't angry at all. Huijun's next words, however, sent a chill down Mengyao's spine. Tang what? Wasn't it Tang Yin? Mengyao wanted to stop him, but Shu reacted faster than her, running out first. Mengyao let out a breath of relief. Yeah, he's looking for me. I'm helping him level up, but his phone's turned off. You guys can't reach me? Lin Yi said, not noticing that Huijun was halfway through his sentence. Target equals underweight. Chapter 1901. Hashtag X00A0 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 because it was a meaningless word to Lin Yi. Tang what? Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Yeah. We saw that your phone was turned off, so we drove back first. Mengyao's heart relaxed a little at the sight of Lin Yi and Huijun coming back together. Even she didn't know why she felt so relaxed. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Could it be that she didn't want him to be with Xinyan? But Xiao had said yesterday that Lin Yi was allowed to find a first wife. What was he supposed to do with Wang Xinyan? Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Alright, I'll head back first then. Huijun said with a wave of his hand, getting into the car. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Okay, see you later. Lin Yi nodded. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Mengyao and Yushu sighed in relief as they watched the Audi A6 drive away. Luckily Yushu reacted quickly, or else they wouldn't know how to explain Tang Yun. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Most of the people around Lin Yi had confessed, but Huijun hadn't returned to Songshan yet. Mengyao decided that she'd have to give him a call when she got back and tell him not to spill the beans. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Lin Yi, let's eat together. Granny's son is ready. Mengyao said, but her expression was much warmer. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. You drove the car back first. Are you angry? Lin Yi looked at Meng Yao and Yushu, but didn't see anything wrong with their faces. It was as if they weren't angry at all. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. No, we're a little tired, so we drove back first. You're in good health anyway, so it doesn't matter if you don't have a car. Meng Yao made up a random excuse. You better tell us when you're out next time, we don't want to wait for you at school. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. I did lose track of time today. Lin Yi nodded as he looked at Meng Yao. Was this concern for him? However, the eldest miss always had this kind of expression, so he couldn't tell what she was really thinking. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Meng Yao didn't say anything else as they entered the villa. Grandma's son knew that they were back, so she started putting the dishes on the table. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son originally said that she would eat after Lin Yi and Meng Yao finished eating, but after Lin Yi and Meng Yao asked a few times, she ate with them. After all, there were only 4 people in the house and the table wasn't crowded. There was no need to separate. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 plus. In those tough years, Meng Yao and Yushu had always eaten with Grandma's son, and they were used to it. Now that Grandma's son suddenly became a housekeeper and had to separate, they weren't used to it. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son, have you ever thought about finding another partner? Lin Yi suddenly remembered Faubert's call and asked casually. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Ah? Grandma's son paused and looked at Lin Yi in confusion. Mr. Lin, are you saying that you want me to get married again? Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. You're already so old, and you have no one to rely on in the future. You should find another partner, Lin Yi said. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. This. Mr. Lin, you want me to leave? Grandma's son didn't quite understand Lin Yi's meaning and thought that Lin Yi wanted her to leave. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Lin Yi, what do you mean by this? Meng Yao was also a bit confused by Lin Yi's sudden question. She glared at Lin Yi and told him not to talk nonsense. She would be the first to disagree if he wanted to chase Grandma's son away. If Grandma's son hadn't taken them in during those difficult years, she, Shu, and even Lin Yi would have been found by Yu Lu and died without a burial place. Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0 Hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son, you misunderstood. I mean, it just so happens that I know a person who is also single. He's about the same age as you. I also talked to him about this a while ago. I want you to meet him. If you like, you can live together. Can be considered a companion. Lin Yi said. Hashtag X00A0 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 0 hashtag x00a0 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 hashtag x0 0a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 Grandma's son was talking about Lin Yi being a practitioner and being hunted down by House Yu. These things naturally couldn't be told to normal people, so Grandma's son rejected Lin Yi directly. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. This person isn't an outsider. Speaking of which, he's our housekeeper in Songshan. Lin Yi smiled. We're all family. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. Lin Yi, you're talking about Faubert. Mengyao finally understood what Lin Yi meant. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Grandma's son and thought about Faubert. Indeed, Faubert had always been single, but he really was a couple with Grandma's son. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 Grandma's son. You and Faubert are both single. You can be a couple. Yushu happily agreed. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. That's. Grandma's son wasn't as conflicted as before when she heard that Lin Yi was a housekeeper in Songshan and was also single. However, she hadn't thought about these things for a long time. Now that she was suddenly asked to find a man, she wasn't used to it. Mr. Lin, I know that you mean well, but I don't remember if I have a husband or a child, and I don't remember how they are. Plus, I haven't thought about these things. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. Then let's meet first. Let's leave everything to fate and get to know each other, Lin Yi smiled. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. Then I'll listen to Mr. Lin. Grandma's son said, but didn't expect too much. She'd gotten used to being alone after all these years, and she didn't want to waste Lin Yi's good intentions. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. On the morning of the 11th, Lin Yi drove Mengyao and Yushu to the economics building and parked the car back in the parking lot. He saw that it was about time, so he didn't go back to his dorm and went straight to the biology building. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. As expected, Bai Weituo, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji were already sitting in the third row, and Xinyan was still sitting in the window seat. The seat beside her was still empty. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. Lin Yi, over here. Bai Weituo chuckled as he pointed at the seat next to Xinyan. Hashtag x00a0 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 hashtag x00a0. She didn't know why she was sitting here again, and she didn't know why she'd left a spot for Lin Yi. As far as she was concerned, Lin Yi wouldn't be sitting here again, would he? Otherwise, she could have sat on the right and left 2 empty seats on the left. That way it would be impossible for Lin Yi to sit over. Hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0 hashtag x00a0. Lin Yi smiled and sat down beside Xinyan naturally. Lin Yi had an inexplicable fondness for Xinyan, perhaps because she was the first girl he'd met since coming to Songshan. Thank you for using China Mobile's mobile phone to read. Traffic is free except for listening to books. Passing by. Actually, being a passerby is a great profession. Scene 1. Annihilation 0. The OP didn't get any replies for a long time. The OP would feel like his presence was weak, and that he wasn't being followed by anyone at all. When a passerby said passing by, the OP would suddenly feel like he was being followed after all. Of course, his mood would improve and he'd feel how beautiful the world was, how fresh the air was, how much more food he'd eaten, his back no longer hurt and how nimble his limbs were. I digressed. Scene 2. Desolation. When no one has posted or replied to a post for a long time, a passerby passed by and the post moved. People found something to talk about again and so the OP came alive again. Flowers needed leaves to support them and even the biggest movie needed passersby. Passing by was one of the most important phrases to use when replying to a post. Actually, being a passerby is a great profession. Scene 1. Annihilation 0. The OP didn't get any replies for a long time. The OP would feel like his presence was weak and that he wasn't being followed after all. When a passerby said passing by, the OP would suddenly feel like he was being followed after all. Of course, his mood would improve and he'd feel how beautiful the world was, how much more food he'd eaten, his back no longer hurt and how nimble his limbs were. I digressed. Scene 2. Desolation. When no one has posted or replied to a post for a long time, a passerby passed by and the post moved. People found something to talk about again and so the OP came alive again. Flowers needed leaves to support them and even the biggest movie needed passersby. Of course, passing by was one of the most important phrases to use when replying to a post. Target equals underweight. Chapter 1902. Their first encounter on the train had left a deep impression. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's personality, he wouldn't have bothered with Xinyan's business in the business district. Book Ocean Pavilion, net. I'm sorry about the day before yesterday. I made your girlfriend misunderstand. Xinyan saw Lin Yi sitting beside her and for some reason she felt relieved. It was as if she wanted him to sit beside her. But Xinyan didn't think that she had fallen in love with Lin Yi. Her thoughts were similar to Lin Yi's. The two of them seemed to be fated, and it could only be said that they had a good impression of each other. Xinyan, of course, didn't forget about her engagement. Since it was an engagement, it didn't matter whether she liked him or not. Oh, they're not my girlfriends. Lin Yi said. They're not? Xinyan paused, feeling a little excited. It's good. But Xinyan didn't know why she was so excited. Even if they weren't, Lin Yi still had girlfriends. Perhaps she was happy because Lin Yi treated her as a friend, and didn't hide anything from her? My elders asked me to take care of them. Lin Yi didn't lie to Xinyan. When he first came to Songshan, it was indeed old Lin who asked him to come. Book Ocean Pavilion, net. So that's how it is. You guys live together? Xinyan regretted asking the question. She wasn't a gossipy person. Why did she suddenly ask Lin Yi this question? It wasn't polite. Yeah, I bought a villa nearby and the three of us lived together with a butler. Lin Yi nodded. Xinyan nodded. If that was the case, then it wasn't cohabitation, it was just sharing a room. The villa was so big it wasn't much different from living in a dorm at school. Xinyan shook her head at the thought. Her thoughts were a little messy today. What was she thinking about all these random things for? At that moment, Boss Bai walked into the classroom and the classroom quieted down. Xinyan snapped out of her daze and looked at the podium. That's right, they're all here. I thought there would be people who would ask for leave to avoid military training. Boss Bai said casually, if you are really sick, I won't force you. However, a few years ago, a student pretended to be sick and directly disqualified me from the final exam. He had to repeat the exam with the next student. When everyone heard Boss Bai's words, they couldn't help but feel a chill. This old man was really ruthless. To recultivate with the next cohort, wouldn't that be equivalent to going to college for 5 years? However, thinking that Boss Bai must be an expert in medicine, it was impossible to pretend to be sick in front of him. 2 students in the classroom who were about to take out their medical records and ask for leave immediately stopped. Next, I'll rearrange the class leaders. Bai Weituo, you'll be the class leader, and Wang Xinyan, you'll be the vice class leader and study commissary. With that, Boss Bai didn't allow the students to question him at all. He moved on to the next thing. In a while there will be a bus to take you to the military training, but our Donghai Industry University's military training has always been known for being the strictest. This time you'll be going to the border guards nearby, so be prepared. Wang Xinyan was a bit stunned. She looked at Lin Yi, not understanding how she had become the vice class leader and study commissary. Bai Weituo, on the other hand, had expected this result, so he didn't feel anything out of place. He only thought to himself, only big bro Lin can change my stubborn grandpa's mind, right? Everyone in the class had heard about the strictness of the military training in Donghai Industry University. The two students who had wanted to pretend to be sick had given up because they heard that the military training was too strict. It was said that this was real military training, and it was a completely different concept from the military training in high school. But after the training their bodies were indeed strengthened. However, Coiling Tiger Wright looked at the nervous and scared students in the class with a disdainful look on his face. Coiling Tiger Wright was an elixir maker, but he was still a golden class cultivator. His body was much stronger than normal students, and no matter how crazy the military training was, he wouldn't feel any pressure. Okay, that's all. Let's gather in front of the teaching building of the biology department later. The military training is based on each department. There will be a transport vehicle to take you to the military training site. After saying that, Boss Bai was ready to leave. No way. We're going somewhere else? When the students in the class heard that they had to leave for the military training, they immediately became a little anxious. They also had other high school classmates who had applied for other universities, and their military training had already ended. However, they were all training in school. It was relatively rare for them to go directly to the army for military training. Yeah, let's go buy something delicious. We won't be able to buy anything if we go there. Another student said anxiously. Oh right, a reminder. Boss Bai was just about to leave when he turned around and reminded them, during the military training, you're not allowed to bring snacks, clothes, or personal belongings. We'll provide you with food and lodging, and you'll have to hand in all your belongings and return them after the training. No way. Boss Bai's words made those students who were about to go shopping feel discouraged. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, rows of military buses stopped in front of the biology faculty's teaching building. The medicine faculty was relatively small with less than 30 people in total, so they took a separate bus. After everyone had boarded the bus, it started slowly and drove toward the military training site. Military training was based on classes, so every bus was filled with students from a class. Some specializations had more students in their classes, so there were even 3 students squeezed into one seat. As for the medical specialization, the entire specialization sat in one bus, and there were still empty seats. Lin Yi was wondering if he should still sit with Xinyan when he saw Bai Weituo, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji sitting in the last row with other students sitting next to them. It was obvious that they didn't want to leave a seat for Lin Yi. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly as he sat next to Xinyan. We're sitting together again, what a coincidence. Lin Yi was a little awkward, it was a little too obvious. Yeah. Xinyan blushed, thinking that it wasn't a coincidence at all, it was clearly intentional. But she didn't say it. Right Coiling Tiger yellow hair and purple hair sat in a seat far away from Lin Yi. Right Coiling Tiger hated and feared Lin Yi, and wanted to cause trouble for Lin Yi, but he wasn't strong enough. He could only endure it for now. In fact, with the hidden house use strength, sending out another Earth-class late phase peak wasn't a hard thing to do. But the problem was, even if they did send this person, would they be able to do anything to Lin Yi? Chapter 1903. If they were killed by Lin Yi in one move, it would be a huge loss. House Yu did have a sky-class master, but without the approval of the ancient sects, who would dare to let them out? The Heavenly Elixir sect had specifically reminded the Hidden Right family about this matter. Although Sky Elixir sect was growing stronger and had surpassed the other ancient sects, they still didn't have the ability to destroy the other ancient sections. Naturally, they couldn't be too arrogant. Has your family's matter been resolved? On the way, the other students were chatting and laughing. Only Xinyan and Lin Yi were quiet. Lin Yi felt a little awkward and found a random topic. It's been resolved. Xinyan thought about her background and sighed. Is the engagement with House Kong still there? Lin Yi asked. Yeah. Xinyan nodded. She didn't know why, but she was frustrated. She didn't like this marriage before, but she didn't want to marry Xiaolong as much as she did now. She didn't want to marry Xiaolong anymore. You haven't broken the engagement? Lin Yi was surprised, but he remembered that Xiao family and House Kong were in a similar situation. Although they both had the support of hidden houses, many masters had died. The possibility of the two joining forces was very high. But it's more or less settled. I'm in university and I'm in Donghai. I'm afraid Xiaolong will come looking for me soon. Xinyan smiled bitterly. You don't want to marry him? Lin Yi asked. So what if I don't want to? I'm just a sacrifice for my family's interests. Xinyan shook her head. She was disappointed and even a little dull. You don't have to marry him if you don't want to, Lin Yi sympathized with Xinyan. If Xinyan married a good man, Lin Yi would bless her. But if she married House Kong, according to Lin Yi's calculations, House Kong would be destroyed by him sooner or later. Wouldn't she become a widow if she married them? I don't want to marry. Do I have to marry you? Xinyan smiled bitterly, but for some reason she made a joke. Wang Xinyan's face burned as soon as she heard that. She wasn't a person who liked to joke, but it made her a little embarrassed to say it out loud. Sure. Lin Yi smiled. I'm just joking with you. Xinyan's face turned even redder at Lin Yi's reply, but she was a little pleasantly surprised. It wasn't as if Lin Yi didn't look down on her at all. Lin Yi's cold demeanor earlier. Wang Xinyan still thought that she wasn't attracted to her at all. There were some men who would act cold to attract attention when they were pursuing a girl, but Wang Xinyan knew that Lin Yi wasn't that type of person. Lin Yi's coldness was really indifferent. It was as if he had seen through everything. He didn't take it to heart. I'm just joking. I can't kill Xiaolong, can I? Lin Yi laughed. You don't seem to be afraid of House Kong. Aren't you afraid? Xinyan suddenly remembered that the man in front of her wasn't a normal person either. He'd kicked House Xiao and House Kong out of the noble house ranks, and Uncle Pai Yang, and the others had either died at his hands or his lackey's hands. But he was still alive and well. Even though the Kong and Xiao families had strong support, they had no choice but to maintain the prosperity of their families through marriage. You don't really want me to kill Xiaolong, do you? Lin Yi asked in a low voice. Xinyan paused. She shook her head even though she did think about it for a moment. She really wanted to ask Lin Yi to kill Xiaolong, but that idea was too crazy. It'd be fine if Lin Yi killed the guards, but if he really killed Xiaolong, wouldn't there be a lot of trouble? With that thought, Xinyan gave up on the idea. Kill him and marry Kong Mingming? That bastard is even worse. Then kill them all, Lin Yi said. Xinyan didn't know what to say. Lin Yi looked like a gentleman. Was he a violent maniac? Kill them all just like that. Meng Yao and Yushu sat in the other car. It was an economics car. Yao, it's tough without Shield Bro's help, right? Yushu missed Lin Yi a little. She probably wouldn't be able to see him during this time. We can do it without him, Meng Yao said. Shu, we need to learn not to rely on him too much. He'll leave one day. How can he stay in our villa forever? We're living in his villa now. Yushu said. Shield Bro won't chase us away if we don't leave. We're already in university. We'll grow up eventually, we'll have our own families and careers. Are we still going to rely on Lin Yi then? Meng Yao sighed as she looked at the trees passing by outside the window, a little sad. She felt that she had matured quite a bit in this half a year, and was no longer that stubborn miss who didn't know anything anymore. Lin Yi had taught her the value of friendship, family, and love, especially during those difficult times. It was a precious memory. Yao, why don't you be Shield Bro's first wife? That way you can be with him forever. Yushu suggested. Aren't you a second wife? You can be with him, right? Mei Yao smiled. Yushu's eyes flashed with worry. Hey, I'll try my best. Meng Yao looked at Shu strangely. She felt like something was wrong with Shu today. Wasn't she always full of confidence? Why did she say she'll try her best? It's nothing, the weather's pretty good today, Shu said. Meng Yao looked at Shu confused. She didn't know what she was talking about. After the cars left the school, they drove onto the national highway. The more they drove, the more secluded they got. Eventually they got onto a dirt road. The car's shock absorbers were pretty good, but the bumpy ride was too much for the spoiled students. They started whining, regretting that they didn't bring a cushion. Meng Yao and Yushu on the other hand were perfectly composed. They wouldn't have been able to take this pain half a year ago, but they'd gone to the snowy valley once, and they'd been through all sorts of hardships. This was nothing compared to it. The two looked at each other and smiled. This was a rare life experience. Xinyan wasn't a spoiled child, but she'd never suffered like this before. She was still a little carsick. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to listen to her MP3 player on the train and plane. Music could reduce the dizziness. To be continued. Chapter 1904. Blurg. Xinyan felt a little nauseated. She didn't bring her MP3 player, and since they weren't allowed to bring their personal belongings during the training, she naturally wouldn't break the school's rules. What's wrong? Lin Yi turned around to see that Xinyan's face was a little pale, and there was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. She looked like she was in pain. I'm a little nauseous, motion sick, I want to vomit. But as soon as the words left his mouth, a puddle of white liquid came out of his mouth and landed on Lin Yi's pants. Lin Yi didn't move away, nor did he look down on Xinyan. He reached out to press on her acupuncture points but hesitated halfway. Xinyan still wanted to vomit, so Lin Yi didn't hesitate any longer. He put his hand under Xinyan's shirt and pressed on the acupoint on her stomach, sending a pure stream of pure qi over to calm the urge to vomit. Xinyan's carsick was obviously caused by her stomach being shaken, and that was why she felt like vomiting. Lin Yi only needed to straighten out her stomach and liver and she'd be fine. However, Bai Weituo felt that the carriage was a little too monotonous, and he wanted to sing a song with his classmates to ease the monotony of the journey. But when he walked past Lin Yi, he saw Xinyan's head buried in Lin Yi's chest, and Lin Yi's hand under her clothes. Bai Weituo was shocked. Xinyan's vomiting wasn't loud and no one in the carriage noticed, but Bai Weituo stood in the middle of the carriage and made another sound, drawing the attention of the other students. They all turned to look, and the ones who were closer saw Lin Yi and Xinyan's states clearly. They were all stunned. Isn't that it? My goddess. He's taken just like that. A guy sighed, looking up at the sky. Hearing his sigh, the other people's gazes became even more ambiguous. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. This Bai Weituo, of all the times he could have come, he just had to come when he was treating Xinyan's vomiting. There was no way he could explain this. However, Lin Yi was not a person who liked to explain things to others. In the dormitory, sometimes he would explain to Bai Weituo and the others. That was because they were his roommates. Lin Yi treated them as his friends. That was why he would explain to them. But other than that, he counted on Lin Yi to explain to others. That was simply an unrealistic thing. Bai Weituo saw Lin Yi's dumbfounded expression. Knowing that he was in trouble, he quickly walked to the front of the car and said to his classmates, "We're only halfway through the journey. Let's sing a song. It's our first group activity. What do you think?" This time, everyone's attention was diverted by Bai Weituo. Of course, although everyone was a little curious about Lin Yi's boldness, this kind of thing was also common on campus. Everyone had also familiarized themselves with the campus in the past 2 days. They also had a better understanding of the young couples who met in the woods and the swimming pool. This kind of thing was nothing between couples. So what if they touched each other? There were real fights in the swimming pool. Bai Weituo took the lead and sang a song by Su Shihan. A song by Su Shihan. The young people were all familiar with it and they all liked her. Bai Weituo started singing and the others started singing. Of course, except for Right Coiling Tiger and the others. Right Coiling Tiger was a little depressed when he heard Su Shihan's song. It wasn't that he didn't have the idea of hitting on Su Shihan. In fact, he went to ask Su Shihan out and he even wanted to ask her to play with him through her manager, but he was rejected. Right Coiling Tiger was very depressed because of this. He wanted to forcefully kidnap Su Shihan, but he didn't think that Su Shihan's bodyguard was a master. Although Right Coiling Tiger didn't give up, he didn't have the chance to get close to Su Shihan. He could only give up for now. Of course, Lin Yi didn't sing because he didn't know how to sing at all. Su Shihan came to his house to sing a few times, but Lin Yi didn't participate. Under Lin Yi's chi, Wang Xinyan's face looked a lot better. She let out a sigh of relief and raised her head from Lin Yi's arms, but when she remembered that Lin Yi's hand was still on her stomach, her face turned red again. "I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't want to explain to others, but he had to explain to Wang Xinyan. No matter what, Wang Xinyan was his good friend, and it wouldn't look good for a girl like her to have a misunderstanding. Thank you. Wang Xinyan was a little shy, but she wasn't angry at Lin Yi at all. Lin Yi was a very good doctor, and Wang Xinyan knew that from the beginning. Back on the business street when Lin Yi saved Lu Zhenhu, Wang Xinyan knew that. And so, Xinyan knew that Lin Yi didn't have any other intentions. He was just trying to help her. It was embarrassing that he'd touched her stomach, but he'd done it out of good intentions. Why would she blame him? Lin Yi let go of his hand and pinched Wang Xinyan's forehead a couple of times, and Wang Xinyan felt refreshed. She didn't feel nauseous anymore, and the dizziness from before was gone as well. He felt a lot better in an instant. It was amazing. This man really was good. Wang Xinyan looked at Lin Yi, a complicated look in her eyes. Lin Yi wasn't just good at martial arts either. He'd been able to get the scammer's money back on the train, and then switch Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe's wine. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Lin Yi's skills were on par with a magician's or a thief's. But this wasn't even Lin Yi's specialty. Lin Yi's medical skills were something that Wang Xinyan couldn't help but gasp in amazement. To be able to make her sober from motion sickness in such a short amount of time, that was no ordinary feat. It was just a small ailment, but it was hard to cure it completely. She'd have to vomit for a long time every time she got carsick, and she'd have to drink a couple bottles of Huxiang Jingqi water to recover. But all Lin Yi did was rub his abdomen and forehead. What amazing medical skills! If that wasn't enough, then Lin Yi's martial arts skills were even more amazing. Uncle Pai Yang and the others were from hidden houses. They'd only be sending themselves to their deaths in front of Lin Yi and his lackeys. Just what kind of person was he? He was just a normal student in a university. She wouldn't have noticed the difference between Lin Yi and the other students if she didn't know about all this. She felt Lin Yi's hand move away from her forehead as she was lost in her thoughts. She felt a sudden reluctance to part with Lin Yi's hand. She didn't know if it was because she didn't want to let go of that refreshing feeling, or because she didn't want to let go of Lin Yi's hand. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.